Welcome back to the Minutemen Initiative. Today we're going to be breaking down and discussing layering systems, how to do that, what kind of gear you need to buy in order to be able to layer properly, and just the different steps of layering in general, starting from the base layer, moving all the way up to like hard shells, the outer layer. So today we have a guest. We're bringing in our good friend Ed. He's an avid outdoorsman and hunter, and he's got a ton of experience with different layering systems, and he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic. So he's going to help us break this down and just hit us with those knowledge bombs. And this is such a critical topic, and it's very important to understand, and it's such a pivotal part of keeping your body safe and protected and safe from exposure. So hope you enjoy the episode. So it's come up before, talking about my history here on the episode here on the show. Yeah. I guess it's a show. I don't know, it's a podcast.
Podcast, yeah.
Whatever. I was stationed up here in Alaska in my military days, and it gets cold in Alaska.
It does.
It gets very cold, but
and wet.
And wet, yeah, exactly. And really dry too, but
dangerous
depending on what's going on. So you'd think that the coldest I've ever been would be here in Alaska, especially because we'd go up to Donnelly Training Area in Fort Greely and do like cold weather training and all this stupid Arctic Warrior try-hard stuff. And, we'd be in like negative 40, negative 50 degree conditions sometimes up there, Fahrenheit, for all you non-U.S. listeners out there. We use the imperial system here. Get over it. Anyways, no, the coldest I've ever been was 100% hands down in Afghanistan. And it was like when we were first there, and I remember getting there and being like, isn't it supposed to be like hot here? What's going on? And it was like snow. It was literally like snow on the ground. But our OCP issue didn't have very much cold weather focus in it. Like we had some, but
yeah, no, now that I think about it, when I got mine, it didn't.
So we were over there with that stuff. I mean, we brought our, some of our stuff, but we're going out on mission. We all just wore our regular gear, like our regular.
You guys didn't have the old EQUIC system out there?
I mean, we brought them with us, but we didn't bring them on mission like idiots. Or I didn't, at least. Maybe some other guys were wiser than me, but
if they were, they didn't tell you.
Yeah. So we helicoptered out, and it was like 21 degrees, and it was like really humid too. And I remember this morning dew, we were in an overwatch position with our machine guns, and I had my my EBR set up. And I remember looking around at my buddies, and I was like, dude, we're literally like frosted over. And we were just shivering. Like I was so cold. I could not believe how cold I was. And it was only like 21 degrees. That's not that cold. I mean, it was, obviously some people are like, what? That's super cold. No, like in Alaska, it can be on the opposite end of that, negative 21 degrees, and that's kind of a regular January day, So yeah, it was like shivering and so cold that you like want to cry. Like you're just like, this is never going to end, And I just remember thinking like, man, like how in the world are we this cold? But all we had on was our fatigues, just our regular gear, And
there's just nothing you can do about it either.
No, we're just out in the middle of nowhere, just watching some Afghan village start its day from an overwatch position. Oh, man. Dude, it sucked. It was terrible. And I remember just like wanting that sun to come up so bad because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then finally the sun comes up, and you have that like initial period at dawn where it actually drops in temperature. It's like a pretty common thing where it'll be really cold, and then the sun will come up and kind of burn off that like insulating layer in the air, and it gets like super cold. And there was like that moment where I was like, dude, this sucks. Like I'm I want to quit, like you have that feeling, but you're in the middle of a foreign country.
You just call an Uber.
In a war zone. Yeah, there's no getting out of there. And then I remember what really snapped me back into it was earlier on that movement when we got off the Chinooks and we like rucked into where we were going to go. Well, my squad leader fell in a creek, like full on, like full body, just plunged. Ooh. Like we were moving super quiet under nods. It was like really stealthy. And then all of a sudden we just hear, just this big old splash in the water. And it was my squad leader. And we were like, oh, dude, like no way, But I just remember being so cold. And then he came over and checked on us. He's like, you guys doing okay? And he was literally covered in ice. And I was like, nah, dude, I can't complain. Like that guy straight up fell in a creek, dude.
How could you at that point?
Yeah, and he's up here just icy, just the icy warrior, dude. Yeah.
Do you think he fell in on purpose?
No, dude, he didn't. He was that guy. Like he was just the guy that was always trying as hard as he could, and he was awesome. He did good things, but he's just one of those guys too that weird stuff happened to him, and you're just like, how, dude? Like, how did you stumble and fall there? That kind of stuff. Just a little bit.
I was about to say, was he just
coordination was a little bit out of there?
Was he tiredly complaining and he was just like, "I'm just gonna fall in this creek"?
No, but
I
think he did make a subtle point because me and a couple other guys, we were like cuddled up in a whoopee, like we pulled our whoopee out of our assault packs, and we were like, I didn't have mine. One of my buddies did. He's like, I got my whoopee, and I was like, oh, and we were supposed to like be behind the guns, but we were definitely sitting up, like pulled off the guns a little bit, like cuddled in a whoopee, and he came up like covered in ice and was like, you guys should probably be behind the guns. And we're like, you would, dude. Like you're hardcore out here. But long story short, if I had my proper layers on, I wouldn't have been cold.
Yep.
Because
it's all about the layers.
Up in Donnelly training area, several times, just extreme negative temperatures, and you're just cruising around. Just no problem. And it's all because you're all layered up, because you're definitely not out in just fatigues in that kind of weather. So, but yes, that's what we're going to talk about today. And actually, we have a guest on with us. Ed, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Going to share your knowledge of layering gear and how to do it and different materials. And
do my best.
He's got a lot more experience with just a bunch of different brands and just overall knowledge. And I understand layering as a system, like how to do it, but as far as like the different brands and materials, that's where I've got a lot to learn. So appreciate you coming on to share your wisdom with us. But
the knowledge bombs.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Knowledge transfer.
Dude, start the upload process.
Yep.
We talked about this in our last episode, and I think it came up actually, Steven. Didn't it come up in the ruck?
Yes.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Because I remember listening to it, just knowing I was going to get a phone call later.
Oh, yeah.
Because I knew I was going to be that guy.
Yeah. Steven said, we know somebody we can bring in. And Ed knew when he heard that. He was putting up the Batman signal.
I guess we hadn't even talked to him yet before the podcast had released. So he got to actually get recruited to this thing without us actually physically coming and talking to him.
Yep.
Dude. That's the way it goes.
Dude, that's how it is. That's how it is.
But yeah, we brought up layering and the importance of that, and in that episode, and then we were like, man, we should really. So we talked to Ed, and Ed was like, yeah, let's do it. So that's what we're gonna do. I think it's a very important topic. It's super important to understand, even if you don't live somewhere that's like really cold, like Alaska. It's still very important to understand this, especially if you're going to be in any kind of extended field environment where you're in an austere environment, or even just a more, even if it's like pretty temperate, and it's not bad. I think it's really important to understand how to manage your body temperature and your sweat and stuff like that. So that's done with layers.
Yep.
Yeah, and actually even in hot weather, kind of like what you had mentioned, off recording, Ed, you were talking about just with us, you were just saying, like hot weather, it's, some people think, oh yeah, you don't have to layer for hot weather. You can just wear whatever, but it still has its, benefit.
It's all about the base layer.
Yep.
Well, dude, you just want to start getting into it?
Dude, I don't know any other way.
Well, then let's go. Onward, dude. Onward research.
So where to start? Where to start, you think?
Dude, the first place to always start. Well, let's back up a little bit, I guess. Throw on the backup beeper. I think first we need to talk about a couple things before we really get into it. Kind of define layering, and then I think we've kind of talked about it already. Jacob kind of mentioned some reasons why we do it, but we can kind of talk about that again here to get us rolling. Let's get our minds in the layering onions.
Yep.
Yeah, start peeling them back. I was explaining it in classic Jacob ramble mode. So,
dude, I might have to give you a run for your money here today.
Oh, sweet, dude. The ramble off.
So layering. Layering is wearing multiple layers of clothing to help regulate the body's temperature. And then the amount and type of layers you wear based on the ambient temperature and the activity level. So as Jake kind of mentioned earlier, there's some reasons why we're layering. And one of the most important reasons is actually moisture management, managing that sweat. If you sweat and you get that evaporating off your skin, man, it just chills you out, which is no good in the cold. So that all comes down to base layers.
Yep.
So where we kind of start, just like the foundation, man. There's two different categories, really. There's really like a third ghost category, kind of mix of the two. That base layers are broken into. We got synthetic fibers and natural fibers. And then that ghost category is, like I said, it's a blend. It has some synthetic and natural fibers trying to gain the best of both worlds, right? Compromise kind of style.
It seems like a lot of newer brands too, or not newer brands, but newer layers coming out from brands tend to be like a blend. A lot of guys using that synthetic and natural fiber kind of blend for base layers, it seems like.
Yep, it does. It really meshes well, and we'll get into the pros and cons of natural and synthetic fibers, and you'll kind of start to see the breakdown of why having a blend of both is a good idea. So we broke down the base layer there real quick. We're just kind of doing a summary of what we're going to talk about. The next layer is the insulation layer. This is going to be your medium layer, middle layer. There's many different types of insulation that we'll break down again here later as we go on. And then the outermost layer is going to be your shell layer. And that's going to be for your weather conditions like rain, wind,
which I think most people have the shell layer. I'd say the majority of people know about the shell layer because they're like, oh, that's the outer, it's a rain jacket, or that's the Most people, like, when it comes to layering, they're like, oh yeah, that's all I need, like I just need to throw on this big coat, dude, and I'll stay warm or whatever, that kind of mentality.
Or they're using a shell without even realizing it,
Yeah. But they're also skipping all the, you were talking about how your base layer may be the most important layer. Like when it comes to layering, like your base layer can make or break you in the layering system. So I think that's where, like, most people understand the shell layer because that's like your outer coat. So that's what most people throw on. Like if you're out snowboarding, most guys have, their shell layer on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Well, that's what's crazy about this whole layering thing is, I don't want to sum up everybody into a giant group here, but I feel most people right now are layering and they don't even know it. You're probably wearing some socks. Again, I don't want to sum everybody up here and make assumptions, but you probably have some kind of undergarments on, right? There's some people out there.
Commando, dude.
Yeah, commando. Yep. We'll leave that one for now. And then you probably have some pants or t-shirt or sweatpants or something on, and that's layering, man.
Yeah, but then I think where the ultimate switch is where you start understanding materials of layering.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, it definitely can get complicated as you go. But as a whole, layering itself is not very complicated.
Yep.
So kind of summing up like I said, there's 3 layers there: the base layer, insulation layer, and the shell layer. It's not necessarily a requirement to wear all 3 of them all the time. However, base layer should be worn all the time: hot, cold, wet, dry, everything. And we'll get into that here shortly of why that benefits you.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can just jump right into it if you want. So you've got basically your like you said, you've got a base, an insulation, and then a shell. And then as you'll kind of find out as we go, there's, a lot of specifics that break down in each of these layers.
Yep.
So
it's
just where
weeds.
Yeah,
quickly.
which is important. I mean, I think that's really where you can set up a good system. And again, this is definitely, I think the layering system as a whole is definitely for like being out, it's protecting your body from exposure, it's being out doing something. And, some guys I know guys that wear layers like every day, like for their kind of daily job or just daily life, they're wearing like a base layer. I'm not that guy personally, but if I'm going to be outside for an extended period of time, especially in the winter, then I'm 100% going to be layering up.
Yep.
So, yeah. So you want to break down like, do you just want to start at the base layer and kind of work your way up?
Yeah, dude. Let's start at your base layer and just work our way out. So the main reason for the base layer is it's going to transport moisture away from your skin for evaporation. To be effective in doing this, the base layer needs to have contact with the skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the fit on these are very important. Some people out there will be wearing a, in quotes, base layer, and it's just flopping all around in the wind.
Yeah.
And it's just not doing them any good.
Yeah.
That layer needs to be contacting your skin to take that moisture off your skin and transport it to the fabric itself, so it evaporates from that and not from your skin. And to sum up kind of how that works is taking a shower. You step out of the shower and you just immediately feel cold. That's that water vapor, evaporating off your skin. It's just taking away that heat.
Yep.
So wearing that base layer, you've got that fabric soaking up that moisture and it's evaporating off of the fabric rather than your skin. So it's maintaining a lot of your body heat that way.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect example of like why it's so important to have a base layer, because no one likes coming out of the shower like at all,
dude.
Like it's such an uncomfortable thing. Like perfect example is my kid. He's 3 years old. He will legitimately freak out coming out of the shower. Like he hates going from like that really warm to cold.
Yeah.
My wife has to have a blow dryer like on standby to start hitting him with hot air. Otherwise he'll freak out.
Dude, that's a good idea.
Dude, yeah.
You just wrap him in a towel?
Dude, it's just not enough, dude. I don't
Really?
know. He just hates it.
Oh.
My girl, she's fine, dude. She'll hop out and she's just like, just like cruising around like, yeah, whatever, dude. But he is, I don't know. He's kind of a prima donna in a way, but that's all right. He's a character, man. But he gets all worked up over it. He's like, man, I'm cold. But it's only then, though. Like, he can go play outside and be freezing cold, but coming out of, from hot water to that, it's like, dude, that's the worst thing he can go through.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think that really sinks it home for sure.
Yep.
But, yeah, so as far as materials, were we going to get into that as well? I know you said something about pros and cons.
Yep. We're definitely going to talk about materials. That's types of fabric. That's actually up next here.
Okay.
So for the base layer, we've got 2 categories. Kind of as I mentioned earlier, we have synthetic, natural, and then the blend.
What was that?
A little feedback, actually.
Oh. I don't know if they got picked up, and I heard it in my headset.
I heard it too. Yep.
Anyways.
Derailed, man.
Yeah, it scared me. I was just so focused on what Ed was saying. and then
I just got lost.
Then I thought you were having electronic warfare against us for a second.
It was.
It's just someone tuning in, dude.
Yep.
Get the old tune in. What's that? Those video blogger guys. They get people coming into the stream, whatever. It starts dinging and doing all sorts of weird things.
Oh, it's like
whatever that's called.
Oh, what do they call that? A raid? Stream raid or something like that?
Yeah, I don't even know. You know more than I do.
Yeah, apparently not. I don't know if that's true or
I don't
not.
know. Call my kids up. They probably
Yeah,
know.
right.
So I lost where we were. You got two categories of the base layers, two types of fabrics. Well, multiple types of fabrics, two categories. Yeah, that's the word. Synthetic and your natural. And then that blend, like I said. Just like anything in life, pros and cons, man, and then trade-offs. So your synthetic fibers are polyester, nylon, polypropylene, spandex, lycra, all that kind of a jazz. The benefits to these types of fabrics are they tend to dry fast. They're pretty durable as far as like abrasion resistance. Big one here, they're generally cheaper. I know that's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially when you start talking about, it's, there we go, some more noise.
You're good.
Start going through having multiple layers of these things, right? You don't want to just have one layer and it just get completely soaked. And
that kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
right.
like you're banking on your layering and your layering gets wet. It's like,
yeah.
Time to go home.
like
Yep. And then on the flip side of that too, some disadvantages to the old synthetic fibers. They start to build up a smell.
Ooh, stanky.
Yeah, stinky. Which for the old Minuteman action, I think you guys have already talked about smells before.
Mm-hmm.
It might be getting mixed up with some Mike Jones action too. I know he's hit the sills pretty hard. So
yeah. I think pretty much all military guys are very familiar with sills.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's just ingrained in us.
Listen and smell.
Yep.
Is what that stands for.
Yep. You start smelling like BO out there in the woods, trying not to be found, man. It's they're gonna find you.
It sounds weird. I mean, and we've talked about this a lot, but it sounds weird. It sounds like, what? Like BO in the wood? Like, that's how you gonna get found. I'm telling you right now. Like, if you're out in the woods for a long period of time and you get used to the environment and the regular smells that are happening, you can pick up on an errant smell or like an odd.
Yeah, it goes with good smells and bad smells, though. That's the thing that people got to understand. I feel like, some people are like, well, yeah, you can't stink, but it's like, yeah, but you can't smell good either.
Right.
So you got to be like, just take care of yourself, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do proper clothing changes when you're supposed to do clothing changes, and also don't make yourself smell like a rose,
Yeah.
Like, take care of yourself, but also don't be putting like
Axe body spray on.
yeah, or like,
Yeah.
get unscented baby wipes and things like that.
Yeah.
Dude, baby wipes, yes.
Gotta have them.
Yep.
Mandatory.
Yep. It also applies the smell for hunting.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So, yep. Wear base layers hunting too, man. It's important.
Which it might be the reason why so many people are pushing, like, not even from like, I would say that's probably the biggest benefit to going natural from like these bigger companies like point of view, because they are like the majority of their, I guess,
customer base.
yeah, customer base is going to be like hunters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not everyone,
nobody likes to be
there's
stinky, man. If you're sharing a tent with some dude for days hunting or camping or trekking, I mean, dude,
so
that could turn into life-threatening real quick.
Life-threatening, dude. Yeah.
Yep.
100%. Dude, it can get raunchy
It
quick.
reminds me of the last training that we were on, and people were literally picking their tent that they wanted to sleep in based off of who was going and where.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude.
Dude, did that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it happened.
Yeah. Oh, it's so
It's
good.
so hilarious. Anyways. All right, so cons, they smell bad.
Yep.
What's next?
And And off of that, real quick before we move on, there are some companies adding some fairy dust to some of their synthetic fibers. Name dropping here a little bit. Sitka does something called Polygene. I can't even remember what voodoo nonsense they actually do. I think it's something to do with silver.
Yeah.
So they're not
microbial something or other.
I was going to ask too. So are they not doing they're not doing like a blend then of the two? Is that how they're pulling it off, or is it literally just something that they're adding to the synthetic?
It is something they're adding to. That way they can maintain that synthetic fibers without having the disadvantages involved in natural fibers. So they can run full synthetic and still cover up a lot of that smell.
Interesting.
And while I joke about it being voodoo dust and fairy dust, it actually does work. I can typically go when I'm out hunting, I can typically go 4 or 5 days wearing the same t-shirt, sleeping in it, hiking in it, hunting in it. It's 100% synthetic. Sure.
And then like if you were to run a natural material, like how long would you last in that same situation, you think?
That is
roughly
a good question. And I don't know the
you
answer
know,
to that
okay,
one.
I was just curious.
I don't know how that would compare. That is a good question.
Okay.
As
Let's say when you got something that works, you just roll with it, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, and a lot of my experience has been from the hunting side of things. So
Yeah.
When I finally started getting into the actual layering process, rather than just throwing on the biggest coat I got and just marching to the trees, I started getting into the layering. I kind of got tied up with the Sitka gear. Used a lot of their stuff, and it's just worked. So I haven't moved away from that.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's like going to a restaurant and finding a good meal. You just kind of roll with it
every time. But that being said, I do have some blends now I use for other purposes, but I don't know, I guess I just haven't made a habit of smelling my stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I'll have to have my wife smell it next time. Just get home and be like, oh, how does this smell? No, how does this one smell?
Yeah.
That one stinks really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, this one doesn't really smell that bad. Oh, that voodoo fairy dust works.
Fairy dust. Yep.
I definitely know they use silvers. Like a lot of the layers, and I've been looking at. There's quite a few companies doing it now where they add like silver, because silver's got like antimicrobial like properties or something, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably helps fight the stank away a little bit.
Yep. But that does work. So if you do see something in your travels, talking about some scent management type stuff, scent locks, another one you hear a lot in the hunting community. That stuff does work pretty well. It's not necessarily just marketing. So
yeah, it's good to know, because I feel like a lot of stuff you're just not sure. Like you don't know until you know.
Anything out there in the world, it's just, man, what's marketing, what's not, where does the truth lie? You know.
Yeah, you gotta get out and test it, or have someone that's ran it for you that can back it up. You know,
that's the problem.
You'll vouch.
Up here in Alaska too is, dude, we don't have any large stores that just have it all. You can't just go pick this up and play with it, and pick up the next thing and compare it. Like, there's just so much reading, and then
yeah,
and kind of just risking.
Yep, a lot of risk.
Like so much stuff we have to just order and be like, well, I guess I'll see how it is when it gets here.
Yep.
Like, a lot of the gear I've had over the years has been trial and error. Like, and there's things I've just been like, well, that didn't work. Let's send that back. Or sometimes it's like, no, we can't take it back. I'm just like, well, then this is just going into the tote, you know? So, which at least you learned something. So it's not a total loss.
Yep, and share that information, man.
Exactly.
You got buddies, man. That's what this is about. We're just sharing the information here.
Yep.
So for natural, what do we got going on for natural materials?
Yeah, before we get to the natural, I got just a couple more things to say about the synthetic. We kind of got off on our normal rabbit trails. I hear out and listen to the podcast. You know,
welcome to the trail.
They happen.
We'll go down many more. Along the way.
Right. Going back to synthetic, they don't regulate your body heat as well as natural fibers do. and we'll get into that a little bit here when we start talking about the natural fibers. It'll kind of make a little more sense. They're also not as breathable.
Oh.
But like I said, they do dry quicker, and that's a big thing out there in the trees, man. If you gotta dunk them in the river, or you take a dunk in the river, being able to dry that out quick is it's important.
I've definitely found that to be true for synthetics, like polyester and stuff. It's like, man, that stuff just dries out fast. Get it out in the air for a little bit.
Yep.
Stuff dries out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the background that we, as far as base layers are concerned, that's like where we got the most of our time, just because that's what the military issued us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Was like a synthetic base layer system.
Mm-hmm.
And they do dry fast. They like no time at all.
Yeah, I mean, usually as long as you get your like wet tops off, that stuff will put like dry stuff on. That base layer stuff will just kind of dry on the move.
Which I don't know if it was like this for you up in Alaska, but the more we talk about it, the more I like get educated on the topic, like layering and stuff. They really discouraged us layering in the 82nd at least.
That's not surprising. That's the Army, dude. The Army's retarded.
Yeah, they only wanted you layering unless like they could justify it like cold wise. Like they were like, no, you're not putting that on.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
So I will say here in Alaska, they definitely are more focused on like they actually force you to layer. Like they're like, because they don't want people going down with cold weather injuries.
They actually care about.
So like you will have your Silkies bottoms on, and then you're gonna have your, you'll have your, basically your level 1, 2, and then you were going to wear your soft shell top. Like they would usually tell you what you're wearing. But what they did do a lot was that they thought about it the other direction too. And so to keep people from overheating, they would always require you to layer up in a configuration that was always like cold. Yeah. Like everyone would always complain like, why couldn't we have our, it's like fuzzy top on or whatever, or our, like your thermal layer.
Yeah, they have different stages. So they have different cold weather stages and they got different hot weather stages. And that dictates how the uniform's worn in those temperature ranges. So it's all about uniformity, and especially in the 82nd, like it's all about looking good.
Yeah.
Like they want you to look good. And
look good.
Yeah, so if someone's, got layers on and the other person doesn't, then it's like, oh, well, they look different, so they're screwed up.
Yeah. But yeah, no, up here they definitely like
it may not be like that anymore.
Layered up.
It was definitely like that when I was in. But yeah.
And I feel maybe in their defense too a little bit. This whole layering idea is still relatively new within the last.
Well, and that's what I was saying.
10
like
years.
It may not be like that now. It may be like highly encouraged.
Yeah.
Now that there's more data supporting it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it works. I mean, that's something I want to make clear. Like, we wouldn't be doing this podcast today if this wasn't something that is a game changer. Like, I'm telling you, if you're layered properly, you can be in super cold environments and be good to go. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've been in 2 degrees. It's like 2 degrees outside, but you've got good gear on, you're layered up, and you are just comfortable. Like, sometimes you're kind of comfortably cold. That's something that I usually tell people.
That's
like,
where you should be, I think.
Yeah, because you don't want to sweat, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But I mean, that's the whole point of this base layer, right? It's managing your sweat and wicking it away from you so it doesn't freeze. Because any moisture freezes. Like in the extreme cold, it's going to freeze. So that's something you got to be aware of. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point clear that like I didn't know a lot about this like growing up. Like Steven and I we didn't grow up in like a hunting family. Like we didn't really do a lot of that.
No,
we did stuff outdoors, but it was just kind of like random,
just
like
me and you just
hiking around,
doing it on our own,
playing paintball, stuff like that. We went on like camping trips and stuff all the time, but we didn't have this kind of gear. Like it was just like jeans and t-shirts and random.
Yeah, but we still didn't grow up in it. Like our family wasn't the reason that we were going on those trips. And
That's what I'm saying though. Like we didn't even know what to buy.
Yeah, we were just making it up.
Yeah, and then you get in the military and they're like, you got to wear here's all your stuff. And you're just like, what? And then
what do I do with this?
Yeah, and then the more I got into this stuff, like I started getting involved in like going on some search and rescue stuff and going out and doing more extreme, like, mountain, like, summiting some big mountains and stuff, and then people are like, no, you need this, and this, and then just being in a ton of different extreme conditions in the military and like having to use your gear, like not just being told to use it because you're in the military, but like, no, you will use this because you will die if you don't. Then you realize like, oh man, like this is a night and day difference from just putting on like a big old Carhartt jacket,
Yeah, dude.
So like putting on layers and then like a thermal and then like a soft shell, all these things combined. And then it's sick because you can, by delayering and stuff like that, you can regulate your body temperature even more. So you just have full customization over your comfort level.
Yeah.
And it just literally will keep you alive, like this, following this kind of outline. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like the old days I used to listen to my grandpa talk about, where you just put on a heavy wool coat and you just run for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just run for it, dude.
Run for the hills.
Yep. Dude, there's still old timers out there with that heavy, that 80-pound wool jacket on, dude, with
the old scratchy
with
wool.
a Swiss Army knife inside of it.
Dude, that's all you need. That's all you need. No.
It'll work.
Yep.
Not as good as this, though.
Yep. So speaking of wool, we'll transition into our natural fibers. Some of the benefits you gain. So I guess before I go there, when we're talking about modern wool, merino wool specifically, it's not like the coat I was just talking about. It's not a giant scratchy, itchy.
No,
because I think that's what a lot of people think of. Like they either think of that or like a flannel, like a wool flannel.
Yeah.
It is not the case. Dude, it is just soft and
it's
comfortable.
so snuggly.
Dude, it's just snuggly, man.
That merino wool is something else, man. It's
almost
so
got
awesome.
that feel of just like a nice fleece throw blanket,
It's like Egyptian cotton or something.
Egyptian cotton. The bamboo sheets. Dude, weren't we talking about the bamboo?
Yeah, we were talking about bamboo
day?
sheets, yeah.
That was a new one to me. I'd never heard of bamboo sheets.
I was wondering if the bamboo sheets have like a wicking about them. I don't think they would.
Dude, we should start making our own base layers.
Dude, I guarantee there's bamboo base layers out there, dude.
There's gotta be.
It's worth a Google.
Keep going. I'll look it up.
All right, sounds good.
Because everyone's dying to know.
Dude, I'm dying to know.
All of our audience is like, we need to know about bamboo. No one cares. But I'll look it up anyways.
It's the fourth category. It's bamboo.
I think that'd be natural, wouldn't it? Still though.
Yeah, it's a natural thing. Yep.
Little bamboo action.
Bamboo action.
Panda.
Dude, just Kung Fu Panda. So some of the benefits you get out of going with these fibers versus your synthetic are it's going to be more breathable. Just a little better airflow. We kind of touched on it briefly just a second ago. It's going to be more comfortable. I wear synthetics. I don't want to give the appearance that they're uncomfortable, but when you compare it to a merino wool, dude, it's just hands down.
I think it also depends on like how cold it is, because I think merino wool probably is nicer in the cold for sure.
Yeah.
If you're talking about in the heat though, and you're just trying to use it to pull sweat off your body.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like synthetic is lighter, but you said it's less breathable, so it's like maybe not.
Yep. Well, I was gonna say that was gonna be my next little thing to bring up is, like I said early on, it's weird to think that in the desert you'd still want to wear a merino wool base layer, but it does help.
You want to hear a quick caveat about bamboo base layers? Because they do exist.
They exist.
So, it's a natural, sustainable, odor-resistant base layer. It is not as odor-resistant as merino wool, but it's more durable than merino wool, and it feels softer than both wool and synthetics.
Really?
But there is some downsides to it, and the main brands are Rayon and Viscose make bamboo layers. Bamboo is cold when wet.
Interesting.
I believe that because like the sheets,
yeah,
that's why they stay cool because they're probably wicking your sweat slightly, but it's keeping that sheet cold by doing that. So that's like their big, that's their big advertisement for, sheets. It's like, oh yeah, you'll stay cool at night, which is cool.
There's your hot weather ticket right there. The old bamboo.
Yeah, merino wool is warm when wet. And it says that merino wool outperforms bamboo in every category, except for durability. But it says, too, that it's flammable versus wool, which is fire resistant.
Yes.
So, anyways, there you go.
Yep. Dude, there it is. Now you know. Now I know.
Yeah.
Now we all
And
know.
you're more likely to be eaten by a panda.
Yeah, dude.
Do not wear these in China.
Just pandas just populating in non-panda areas because you're wearing the bamboo layers.
Like, I know they're using bamboo. We're going to send in pandas.
Yep.
Send in the panda army.
Yep.
No, dude. All right. Cool. Moving on.
Yeah, right. Dude, just derailed again, man. It just it takes me out.
I don't know where you're at.
Takes me. I don't either. So we'll just start
said
right
more
here.
comfortable,
More
right?
comfortable. I think that's where we're at. Yep. And so Jacob kind of just mentioned this too. Merino wool is going to be warmer for the same weight than synthetic fibers. Odor resistant. We kind of talked about that earlier too. And then likewise, you just mentioned it retains heat when it's wet.
Which is wild.
Isn't
That
crazy?
alone is wild.
Dude. Yep.
Like that is a plus side in somewhere like Alaska for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't want to get confused with wet being just rain or water either. Just
That's
the amount of
sweat.
sweat you soak up.
Yeah.
Yep. There will be sweat unless you layer right,
Yeah.
and then there'll be less sweat.
There'll still be sweat.
There'll
It'll
still be
just be
sweat.
off of your skin,
Yep.
which is a good thing.
Yep. But right, there's two sides to every coin here. So, the natural fibers tend to be more expensive, as compared to synthetic.
For sure.
Yep.
And I will just go ahead and let everybody know substantially more.
Yeah.
I've had synthetic layers for a long time, and actually we've been doing some cold weather training and stuff recently, and just from that and conversations, I'm like, you know what, I need to upgrade my layer systems. And you go from you can get synthetic base layer, surplus synthetic U.S. Army base layers for $6.
Yeah, for a top. And
Yep.
And then you can get some Amazon specials that are actually pretty good. Or you can even go brand name. I was looking at some of the, I think it was REI branded stuff that makes just full synthetic, synthetic and spandex, which that's full synthetic, but
Right.
or poly. I think it was
Polyester.
yeah,
spandex or
polyester and
something.
spandex. And I see a lot too jersey material, like jersey fabrics or something.
Yeah, but what is that?
I don't know. I see it a lot in specs. I'm like, what? But
is that the material that's got the holes in it?
maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I see it come up a lot. But anyways, you can get a good, well-made set of full synthetics for between $20 to $40. You jump into a merino wool, looking at smart wool, which is 100%.
Yeah.
You're going up into the $150 to even
Yep.
close to $200.
Yep.
Then your blends, are. We'll just say that the merino wool wins out on the cost of the blends because you're still the set I'm trying to invest in currently is it's a basically a 50-50 blend, but I mean it's $100 a layer. It's not cheap, but I don't know. I think it's kind of one of those buy once cry once kind of things
Absolutely.
when it comes to this.
Yeah, especially on the base layers too. It's just such an important layer that this isn't necessarily the point to skimp on.
Yeah, I guess the jersey material is just the type. It's just a different form. It can be done in wool, it can be done in synthetic, it can be done, but it's just the type of material that it I guess one side's soft and the other side is
it's a style of fabric
yeah, it's a style
Design.
more than anything. But it says it can be done in wool, cotton blends, and synthetic fibers. So it's not like it can be done in anything. But I assume that would be listed if that's in there. If it was done in cotton, there would be something about it being cotton, a certain percentage. So it's probably all, as long as it's fully synthetic, it's probably synthetic material. I would assume. For sure. But, the more you know, I guess. I didn't know what that was either. I kept seeing that as well, like when we were looking around.
Sweet.
Yep. So they're, can't remember if we hit this one real quick. They're also not as durable as synthetic. Going back to the merino wool.
Yeah. What do you mean? What does that mean? Like, do you mean like it tears easier, or is it like, I don't know, like get abrased?
Abrased, yeah.
Abrased. Is that a word?
It sounds like a cooking word.
Braised is, but abrased. Like it, yeah.
A braised pork chop. I don't know.
Yeah, abrased. Yeah.
But yeah, like
it is a word to wear down or rub off.
Yep. Excellent. Google says so.
Yep.
Must be true. Yeah, like wearing a pack, your pack straps, the pack on your back, chest rigs, plate carriers, rifle slings, all that stuff is just constantly rubbing on you. And that constant rubbing, shoulders specifically, it's just going to break down over time for your merino wool versus your synthetic fibers. So again, right, they're more expensive and less durable, but they do have other beneficial trade-offs. That, right, is what it is. Sometimes it takes money to play the game, unfortunately.
Yep.
But like you mentioned, those surplus silk weight, heavyweight, part of the EQUIX system, that extreme cold weather clothing system, you can get those surplus very cheap, like you mentioned. Really easy to find, really cheap. And if that's all you can afford, dude, that is some good stuff.
Oh, yeah, it works.
Yep.
That's all I've used for years, and it works good.
Yep.
It'll keep you warm and dry and comfy.
Right.
So.
Yep. It's a great place to start. And then if you upgrade from there, worst case, you have a whole nother set.
True.
Yep.
Which I think, would you agree that's important to have?
I do.
Yeah.
Even wearing a mixture of the two, having a synthetic set and a wool set, your synthetic's going to dry quicker. So if you do get wet, you can at least have one set dry and put on your other set. A lot of people sweat in their sleep. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there hunting or surviving or whatnot, crawling in your sleeping bag, sweating it up all night long, and then having to wear that same layer all day hiking, sweating, dude, it's almost a necessity to have more than one set out there doing some work.
I think it absolutely is a necessity because, I mean, even going back to the story that Jacob told at the beginning, like, if I'm going to fall into a creek or a lake or something crazy, and when it's cold out, I'm getting naked, dude, and I'm throwing on dry clothes, like, right then and there.
Dude, hypothermia management right there.
Yeah.
Got to.
Yep.
Like, I'm not playing those games. Even in, like, I mean, obviously in a gunfight, I'm not doing it, but, like...
Time out, guys.
Why is that guy naked?
But, like,
awesome.
But, like, in the middle of a patrol, it's like, yeah, we got to take a pause here, man.
Yep.
Like...
Yeah, if it works, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're out there on patrol and you fall in a creek, man, it's... You got to get that stuff off, get dry before you keep moving.
Because if you don't delay then and there, like if you don't have the ability to delay, that's one thing. But if you don't delay then and there, you're going to be delayed for much longer if you have like a hypothermia situation happen with one of your guys, you know. So it's like it's worth taking that time because it's going to end up saving you time in the long run, and it's going to save potentially one of your guys' health. So I think it's kind of a must.
Yep.
And if someone's not prepared, then you can always just throw your extra set on them.
Yep.
If they fall in. So there's that as well. It's like there's always that one guy that just rolling unprepared. It's usually me, but
no, dude, you've converted to Alaska mentality now.
I know, dude.
Remember when you first moved back, you just like never had layers and coats, and you were like, dude, I'm freezing. And then somebody in the group was always like, here's an extra coat, you crazy person.
Dude,
We're in the wintertime in Alaska, dude. What are you doing? Now Steven's like, I need to buy this and that and this and that. You know, once you spend enough time being the cold guy, you're like, no more.
Yep.
No more of that.
I'm not going to be cold ever again. I was warm, actually, last time we went out for that cold weather.
Oh, yeah.
I was toasty, actually, for the most part.
I could have stayed out there for days. That's what I said to somebody. I was like, dude, I'm perfectly
The only thing I could have
situated
upgraded was
right
my
here.
shoes, I think.
Oh, see, I had my big warmies on in the shoe department.
Yeah.
So,
But even then, it wasn't that bad. Like, I was fine. It was just like, you could feel it was a little bit cold on the toesies. A little bit. Like, you could feel it. As long as I was moving, I was good. But, like, if we sat there and talked for too long, I'd be like, yep, my feet are getting a little cold.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert. I don't think I mentioned it earlier. Hats, gloves, shoes, socks. Dude, that's all part of the layering system, man.
Yep.
it's all base too, right?
It does not stop there. I don't know if I'd call shoes
Oh,
a base
socks
layer,
though.
but yeah, socks definitely.
Yeah.
I would definitely say a shoe is a shell
Yeah.
layer.
Dude,
Yeah.
and an insulation layer. It's like a soft shell. We'll get into that later.
Sick. So back to cons of merino wool.
Dude, that about sums them up there.
Oh, okay,
Yep, there wasn't a lot there.
that's when you know when the pro list outnumbers the con list. It's generally the one to go with.
Yep. And then you can get so far down in the weeds too on the blends. Like you'll see a lot of. Usually it's broken down by percent, so like a 90% wool, 10% synthetic, an 80-20, like in the ones you were looking at the other day, more of like a 50-50 type blend.
So would you say it's safe? Like, it's safe to say for our audience that are going to try to like get into layering and stuff. Like, if they're out shopping and they see, okay, yeah, it seems like it's a more heavy percentage towards synthetic versus, for like the blends. But if it's more synthetic, it's probably going to lean more toward the pros and cons of the synthetic side versus if it's more natural, it's going to lean a little bit more toward that, but it's going to kind of share.
Yeah, I agree
you would
with
hope
that.
that it's getting more of the positives from each thing versus the negatives, but I feel like that kind of comes down to the maker of the material.
And really the whole goal in making the blends was just that, trying to take the best of both worlds. So the biggest benefit you're getting when you take wool and start applying some synthetic fibers to it is that durability. It bumps that up.
And I wonder if they're like, I don't know very well because I'm just now recently looking into all I've dealt with really is synthetics, kind of same boat with you is, majority of the stuff I've ran is synthetic. And I'm looking into like the blended stuff right now, but you would think that they would put like basically synthetic sections in areas that are going to get heavily rubbed. Like, I would think that's how I would do it if I was going to make it, but I don't know if that's actually what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't like paneling you're talking about.
Yeah, basically paneling within the actual layer.
I don't know if that's a thing yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of that because I think it's woven in.
Yeah.
Like, I think when they do a blend, it's like they have like a weave they're doing, but a certain percentage of that weave in its entirety is merino wool versus synthetic or whatever it is.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So like the one I'm looking at investing in is made by Outdoor Research, and it's 47% merino wool, 47% polyester, and then 6% elastic. So it's got, stretchy qualities, but then it's, I don't know, I think it's going to be a good
kind of in between.
Yeah. I think it's like, because it's kind of smack dab in the middle. It's like got this, it'll have the warmer, softer, kind of more, all the good qualities, hopefully, of merino wool, and then, but it'll still be tough, which I think is important. So I'm kind of hard on stuff. So, and then I might also get a set of the Varstaleka stuff, which is the 80-20, right?
It is an 80-20.
Because I know you have it.
I just recently picked it up. Haven't really gone out and done anything with it yet. Just life hasn't worked out that way yet, but I'm excited. It feels really good, comfortable.
Yeah, it's like,
so
it is soft. It felt awesome when I was checking it out.
Yep, I like it.
Do you have any brands that you recommend? Like if you go with base layers from these companies, they're going to be like, you're not going to be wrong kind of thing.
Yeah, I do have a few written down. It's not all encompassing by any means. So like Jacob just said, Varstaleka, they're putting out some good stuff from overseas, man.
The
Finns, man. They're nailing it.
It's cold there, so
yep.
Trust and believe.
Crazy. It's very similar to up here.
Yeah.
Yep. And they actually, kind of the other system we've talked about just briefly so far, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit here later. The Equix, the military system, the extreme cold weather clothing system. It's a 7-layer system, and I think Varstaleka's system is also a 7 layers, if I'm not mistaken. It's somewhere around that same.
It's maybe 6, but yeah, 6 or 7 for sure.
Yep. And so they share a lot of the same ideas, right?
Yeah.
Right. You got your base layers in a couple different weights, and we'll get into the weights here shortly. And then you want some insulating, different varying levels of insulation. And then some shells, and there's usually some soft shells thrown in the mix too. So they're putting out some good stuff. Any of the bigger name hunting brands out there, like you got Sitka Gear, Under Armour, Kuiu, Kafaru. I mean, you name it. There's so many of them out there now that's just putting out good stuff. You got some outdoor brands, Outdoor Research, Arc'teryx, if you're feeling rich.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Like, I'm not knocking them by any means,
No.
but they are spend it, you pay for them.
They're kind of as far as like the outdoor world, Arc'teryx is kind of the holy grail. Like, they're kind of the pinnacle of
the old dead lizard, man.
Yeah.
The old bird.
Yep.
An Icebreaker is another one that's putting out some good stuff. Shoot.
What about Mountain Hardware?
I'm sure they do make base layers. I'm not familiar with them completely.
Okay.
I have a lot of other soft shells.
Because isn't Mountain Hardware basically just Outdoor Research? But
no, they're their own company.
I thought it was like an offshoot, kind of like Snap-on tools have different offshoots. But I may be wrong about that.
I've heard that somewhere. I don't know if I heard that from you or somewhere else. I'm not sure.
I'm not either. I thought they were like maybe owned by Outdoor Research or something along those lines. I could be way off.
They're owned by Columbia.
Oh, okay.
Mountain Hardware.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
I just looked it up.
But they're probably cheaper then. Like on the cheaper side of it, I would assume. I would think. Because I know a lot of guys go with Mountain Hardware if they're a little bit more on a budget, it seems like. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool.
So there are things to, unless you had
No, I don't got
something
anything else. Yeah, you're good to go.
some things you want to avoid, stay away from for the old base layer situation is silk. And don't get that confused with the silk weight. As far as the Equix stuff, that's not actually silk. I think, Steven, you brought that up the other day.
Yeah. I was calling them silkies, and
Yeah.
I didn't want somebody to get confused that I meant like actually silk.
Yeah.
We ain't out here and just rocking silk garments,
Yeah,
dude,
dude.
like a boss.
That's what they that's just what the military called them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So they call it a silk weight or silkies, and it's not actually silk, so don't get confused there. So the deal with silk, it's comfortable and it's actually pretty warm for the amount of weight it is. But it doesn't breathe well, and it doesn't actually wick moisture well. And then going back to similar to merino wool, it's even less abrasion resistant. So it'll get tore up and wore through pretty quick.
Are people making base layers out of that still?
I don't know It's definitely not something I see much anymore. I think it might have been at one point.
Yeah.
Because it kind of comes up every now and then. It's not a big one, but just something to be aware of if you're out there looking. And then cotton. Cotton is probably the worst thing you can do for base layer. So cotton does not maintain. Wow, I'm just making up words over here. Maintaining, bro. Yeah, it does not maintain insulation when it gets wet. It just keeps all that moisture right next to your skin. It doesn't transport it away. So you will be cold and wet.
Nasty.
The double-edged sword, dude.
It is. It's horrible.
Just getting sliced down.
And what's sad is like cotton's like probably your like most standard material that like t-shirts and most clothing's made out of. Like it's actually kind of hard to find like stuff just in your everyday life that's not made out of cotton.
I know.
Yep.
Like your pants and stuff. It's crazy to find pants without cotton in them. Like that's a hunt with all within itself.
Yeah. Even like a lot of technical pants will have like a low, like a 38% cotton is a pretty common blend that I've been seeing just doing the old pant research.
Yeah.
I don't want any cotton in my outdoor pants at all if I can help it.
Well, and keep in mind, this is specific to the base layers currently.
Right.
So cotton as an insulation layer, again, there's better options out there. So cotton's fine as long as it's not wet. Yeah. So if it gets wet, either from your sweat, the humidity, rain, that's when your life's gonna suck. It's gonna be all bad. Cotton kills. I didn't want to say it, but somebody's got to.
I'll say it.
Yeah. Yep. So any other things to kind of bring up on the old? We're gonna get into layer.
No, I mean I'm like
comes up.
I'm probably the I don't know. I'm sure everyone's learned that lesson the hard way, like wearing cotton out, either in the cold or whatever. Usually in the cold's where it hurts you, and just getting kind of sweaty from out rucking around or something like that. And you're just like, dude, I have made mistakes, dude. I can feel it. And
Yep.
You definitely don't want to be out on like a long sustainment thing with that going on. Luckily for me, I've never made that mistake. Like I've never gone on like a big hunt or out in the field and not had like the right stuff. I've usually some things like I talked about some cold weather stuff, like where I went out in the cold on the ruck episode, I think is when I talked about that, where I froze my butt off to skimp on weight, basically, but that's a little different. It wasn't that it was just I didn't have warm stuff, pretty much, like enough insulation layers, honestly, is what I didn't have, but yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. So when you start getting into looking at base layers, there's usually 3 different weights that kind of come up: your light, your mid or your medium, and your heavy, which can also be named like a thermal weight or expedition weight. So how they write these numbers is it's a grams per meter squared of the fabric. So it's not just necessarily like an arbitrary number they just assign to it and be like, this is a lightweight, this is a heavyweight. But as we get into it here, you'll see that the weights have a pretty broad range. So it's kind of like sleeping bags and comfort levels and temperatures that they assign. It's not regulated very well and standardized. So this kind of gives you a good place to start when you're looking at these things. So if you see these numbers coming up when you're looking at base layers, this is kind of what they mean, and you can kind of use that to help make your decisions. So something to keep in mind, as you go heavier in fabric, it is going to be a little warmer, but everything's a trade-off. So you're going to start to lose moisture wicking and breathability. So just because you're in a cold climate, don't just rush out and buy some heavyweight thermal layer, base layer, and just think you're going to be good to go because it's always cold.
And you can stack these weights, right?
Yes. So as far as base layer is concerned, the base layer is just a layer that's in contact with your skin, but you can put on a medium or heavyweight base layer as a insulation layer over top of your lightweight base layer is usually what I suggest. If you're getting down to, dude, it's Antarctic level cold, it is just cold outside, throwing on a medium as your base layer is fine. I think you'll be okay doing that. I don't know that I would ever put on a heavyweight as a true base layer.
Right.
Just use that for a light insulation. Because you can't take it off very easy, right? Be out there running around in the woods and decide, yep, I'm working up a sweat now because I'm hiking or climbing a mountain.
You dig all the way to the very bottom.
Doing what you're doing, yep. Got to dig all the way to the bottom, just strip down naked, and then you're going to be really cold, and you're probably wet because you were sweating.
Right.
So
that's what seems kind of cool about that lightweight size is that even if it's hot, you can kind of have it on because it's just going to wick sweat away. And it might sound weird, but it doesn't really feel hot to have it on necessarily.
It's like the same concept as like
it's like Under Armour.
You see it a lot. Well, yeah, Under Armour, but you see it a lot even in the like. I've seen it a lot recently in the when I worked construction. So many guys rocking neck gaiters and stuff down in like I was going down to Oregon and stuff, working in the middle of summer, and it was up in the 100-degree weather, and you're just getting baked by the sun, and guys are running neck gaiters to stay cool and stuff. So it's like even in that like world, people are doing it.
Sun protection too.
Yeah, and it's dust and it's a lot of protection, but it is like actually keeping it cool because it's keeping the sun off your skin, direct contact of your skin. So that alone is helping. So. But obviously it's got more purposes than that, but
so we got the lightweight layers is generally 125 to 200 grams is what you'll see. They provide the best breathability. They're going to wick out of the three categories. They're going to wick moisture the best and dry quickly. Again, however, kind of like we mentioned earlier, they're not going to be very warm.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be slightly less durable than your heavier fabrics just because it is a lighter weight fabric. But all that being said, these ones are great for warmer climates and any high output activity levels. Like if you're just out there smashing about, having on a light layer and then maybe a medium weight or heavy weight if you need some insulation, and shoot, if that's just too hot, then take all that stuff off, go down to just your lightweight layer, and if it's too cold, just throw it on a soft shell or a fleece or stuff.
Yep. Dude. I just had to do a little layering just now, dude. I had to ditch the shoes, dude.
The feet are out again?
Dude, that was hot, dude.
Dude, I'm keeping my feet tucked away today.
Dude, this is just going to be the old podcast thing from now on.
No, I was holding on because my feet weren't ready for it, but they are now.
Dude, your output, your activity levels changed.
Yeah.
You got to take off a layer.
Dude, I just got to practice what we preach here,
Dude, it's happening. Prime example.
So your lightweight, your 125 to 200 grams, that's going to be like for your military guys and also your surplus store frequenters. That's going to be like your silkies, like your
level 1
polyester.
Yep.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yep.
$6 lightweights, dude.
Dude, that might be expensive depending on where you're at.
Yeah, maybe.
That's true.
$6
Alaska prices.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
I don't know.
I
had to order some. I ordered some some one-way valved like those Sea Line waterproof bags. So I've had this set of waterproof bags that are awesome for a long time, but they're just getting old and kind of smelly, and a couple of them have some holes in them, which has been kind of nice because it's just like little tiny like seam holes, like where the seams have come apart, and it kind of has been working as like a valve, like you can like push all the air out and fasten it. So anyways, I got some new stuff sacks, waterproof bag type, but they have the little one-way valve on them, and it got them from a surplus store online, and I don't know where they're at, but I looked at some base layers on there because I was like, I could get an extra set. They were wanting like $16 a pop for those bad boys.
Oh, dang.
I was like, no, I'll wait until next time I'm up in
the
Anchorage area, visit the old 907 surplus.
Yep.
So, because they got those $6 lightweights, man.
Yep.
It's a good deal.
It is a good deal.
Anyways. So what about the old midweight?
The old midweight. Kind of as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a good one to throw over top of a lightweight, or if it's super cold, wearing this as a actual base layer, skin contact layer, is you're probably going to be all right. This is kind of a, oh man, words are hard. Compromise. It's kind of a compromise between the light and the heavy. So you're going to gain a little bit of thermal value, and still maintain a fair amount of breathability and moisture wicking. But when you're out there stomping around, just keep in mind you don't want to sweat.
Yeah.
So again, I would kind of leave these to it's super cold out. It'd be a little easier just to have on a lightweight and throw on another insulating jacket or a puffy or something if you're cold. Rather than starting off, right? You're building a foundation. So if you put on too much to start, it can get kind of swampy.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be.
Swamp monstering.
The old swamp ape, man.
Yeah, you don't want that. I feel like a lot of people fall into that because it's like, they're getting out of their vehicle or whatever into the cold, and it's like, man, it's cold out here. Let's throw on as much as I can. And then they just start going out into the woods and they start getting active, and they're like, oh, I am sweaty right now, dude.
Yeah.
Just like Jacob said earlier, comfortably cold. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, that's a huge mistake, and I'm sure it would have come up later, but I'll just check it off the list now. I've a huge mistake I see a lot is people that dress for like being in extreme cold before they're actually going to be in the extreme cold. So they're like inside
or before they're moving.
Yeah, they get super layered up, and then they're like, all right, I'm going to take a car ride to where I'm going to downhill ski or whatever it is. That's like, dude, you're just going to sweat and get just swampy, and then you're going to go out and you are going to be so cold because all that sweat's just going to freeze and you're going to be miserable. So downgrade. If you're getting in the car or you're doing any heavy work, it's better to be comfortably cold. Even if you're like working, you'll get warm. Like you'll warm up if you're going to go out on a, big ruck or something or a movement, like strip down those layers and, let your gear work for you. Don't make yourself a soup kitchen.
Yep. So going about that here for a second, little detour. That fall time in Alaska is hunting time, right? So getting out there, we can have major temperature swings throughout the day.
Yeah.
Like there'll be times it's, I don't know, it feels like it's up in the 70s or 80s during the day, mid-afternoon. Then you get down, you're sitting on the stand at night, and it is just, dude, it can go from sunny, clear blue skies to 12 inches of snow in hours. So having those, it's kind of where this layering thing kind of comes in, is you can strip a layer off, put a layer on. If you're still cold, put another layer on. It's easier to put more on than to take things off, I have found.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're sweating through things, you know, because then it's like, that's no good for you later until it dries out,
Yep. So back into it, we got the heavyweight, the old heavy hitters. Like I said earlier, kind of also known as thermal weights, expedition weights, stuff like that. these layers I kind of recommend just reserving for low activity type things, right? You're sitting at a tree stand or pulling security or something. You're not going to be moving a whole lot. Because in those situations, you're probably going to get cold. You're not going to be sweating a whole lot. So putting on one of those isn't going to hurt you as bad. So just by the, I think I forgot to mention, sorry, going back to the old medium weight layer, those are 200 to 300 grams.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Sorry, just got all diverted. Then the old heavyweight's about 300 grams and up, as far as the weight. So they are heavier, they're bulkier, but it's going to be the warmest out of the three.
Dang, that means it can go up. I wonder how high up it can go. There's no like.
Dude, I don't know. There's no end. 300 plus, man.
That is. You could get some hot stuff then,
dude. Yep.
Potentially. And that's why I feel like that's more of like, yeah, it's considered a base layer, and I'm throwing up quotations, but I feel like it's like almost more of an insulation layer in that situation, for sure.
Yep, like I said, having that lightweight layer on and then throwing that over top. You're still going to have all your moisture wicking from your lightweight layer, but still have that insulation from the heavy layer. Whereas if you just put on a heavy layer, they're not as moisture wicking as the light layers. Plus, then if it gets colder later, that thing could be a little damp from your sweat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know if I... Like when I was in the military, and I don't know, maybe this is different for you, Jacob, but like the layering system we got, if I was throwing on the waffles, I usually already had the silkies on. So like the level ones already on underneath that. So it's like I was never using the waffles as a base layer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they're probably technically a mid, I guess, or a medium layer. I would say the waffle tops and bottoms.
That's what I'm actually trying to. That's actually what I'm trying to look at right now. Okay. I'm having a hard time finding like grams. Nobody has any kind of weight like that, but I'm just. I would say they're a high, from what I'm seeing, probably high mid to heavy layer.
I would agree with that probably because they are pretty. They are pretty thick. I will say that
it's technically a mid. I mean, it's technically your level 2. For the Equix system, right. Because like Ed said earlier, it's a 7-layer system, and it is designed to be worn in stages for the most part.
And the only reason I bring that up is just because so many people are familiar with that system that it's an easy example, I guess. Yeah, a reference point. Yeah. So, just because they're so widely available, and then we do have a lot of veterans and stuff like that.
Too,
so.
Yeah.
But yeah. So is that basically the base layer?
Yeah, it's basically the base layer.
Basically
the base layer. Little teaser for later. We'll go into socks, gloves, and hats here in a little bit, but those can also and are also considered part of your base layer. But we'll dive into that. We'll talk about all that extra stuff here later.
Yeah. Yeah, which talk about important. Like the farthest point of your extremities.
Yep.
Like trying to keep those warm. I mean, obviously you want to keep your core warm. Like that's actually what you care about, but that's what starts hurting first. I feel like in the cold is like your fingers, toes, and like your ears,
hands. Yep.
But
so this says, just found something here. Just for everyone's information, because the Equix system is made by a couple different companies.
It is, yep.
It can range anywhere from 298 grams to 332 grams.
Yeah, so right in there.
It's right in that heavy.
Yeah, you nailed it. You said high, medium to heavy.
Yep. And what's crazy is you can feel the weight difference if you're holding those silk weights and the waffle tops.
Oh yeah,
you know,
for sure.
level 1, level 2 system. I mean, it's, yeah, the weight is considerable.
Cool.
Yeah, and you were there was something mentioned. It was off. It wasn't during our recording, but you were talking about, you know, like having the waffles, whether it's the waffles or like a mid layer or whatever, have them easily accessible to put on as well. Like because they aren't your base layer, you know, you're going to use them more like an insulation layer, probably more than anything. Right. There's companies that are running basically zippers that run along the whole pant leg, so it makes it easier to get in and out of.
Yep.
And actually, that was something I saw in the military, and I don't know how available it was, but like people would go to like the seamstress and stuff like right off base and like get their waffle bottoms like altered and get zippers that ran basically the whole pant leg, so that way you could unzip all the way to the top, slide your legs in and zip them down.
Yep. And
it was super quick to get into them.
That's cool.
It's actually pretty sweet.
Yep.
But I guess there's companies that are doing it now too. So that's
it's
obviously it's caught on.
Turned into a thing. Side note, off topic side note. I was just thinking while driving around this morning, it's crazy how some things the civilian world sees the military guys doing and just takes that and that, dude, that's awesome. That works. I see it. But some things go the other way too.
Yeah.
This the one that kind of came to mind specifically earlier was the whole low-powered variable optics, man. Just the old competition shooters start running things, and the military guys going, "Yep, that's working." So, just they benefit each other, man. It's great.
Oh yeah, no, I think all sides definitely benefit from each other. It's just experience in general. Like you can learn from everyone's experience, you know. That's why I think podcasts and stuff like that are so important, because you can hear like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because that sounds like that's pretty terrible, or I might just do that because it sounds like it worked really good. Like you don't have to necessarily go learn it the hard way. You can potentially avoid it by, you know, just listening and taking people's advice. Yeah. But
a lot of this, even this layering stuff, a lot of it comes out of like the mountaineering kind of like backcountry ski community and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, it wasn't necessarily developed in the military.
And I don't think that zipper thing was developed in the military. I guarantee some military guy saw some civilian person that had something like that and was like, dude, I want that, and just brought it in, and then it just became an alteration that you could do.
Yep.
Like it just became something that was available.
Yep. And going on that too, thanks for bringing that up. That is an important thing on a lot of your heavyweight, even your top, just having a giant zipper, like a quarter zip. Sometimes you even see some that are half zip, just so if you do start getting a little overheated wearing that heavier layer, you can dump some heat out the top, you know?
Yep. And I think that's important for all layering, like not all layering, I guess, like base layer, maybe not, but like your insulation and your shell layers having venting systems, you know, and most like higher end jackets and stuff like that pretty much all have them now because
pit zip.
They are important. You know, you can dump a lot of heat that way and get some airflow and stuff.
Yep.
Cool. Well, anything else on the base layer worth adding?
Shoot, I don't think so, man. I think we're ready to hit up the old segue to the insulation layer.
Get into the fluffy layer.
The old poofies, man.
Sweet. Yeah, we spent a lot of time kind of breaking down base layer, but honestly, like Ed said at the beginning, it's kind of you shouldn't skimp. Like that's an important layer. I mean, all these layers are important, but
it's the foundation, man.
I think to me, I think what I've started to learn is that it's not that the base layer's the most important. It's that there's the least amount of flexibility there. Like you have to use these materials. Like these materials are going to be better. Don't use these. Whereas like some of those materials can then come back and be used as an insulation layer. Like you talked about, cotton could be an insulation layer. I think you have a lot more flexibility once you get up into these other Probably not with the shell. I think the shell, it kind of necks back
kinda
down into
narrow
being
back
pretty
down.
specific, but
Yeah, unfortunately.
in the insulation layer, I think it's quite a bit more flexible.
I also
So-
think that, like, from like the modern Minutemen perspective, like, I'm not saying don't buy cotton anymore, but what I'm saying is don't waste a layer. Meaning,
Ooh,
hey,
yeah.
if you run out of
Yeah.
base layers because you've been out in the field so long, you shouldn't have to be like, oh crap, I'm screwed because all I got is a cotton insulation
Roll over
layer.
and die now.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just screwed now. So I think it's smart to actually still avoid those materials if you can, because I mean, if I'm out in the field and I've soaked through all my base layers, I'm obviously gonna just have to take the base layer off,
Yep.
and I'm just gonna have to wear my insulation layer right on my skin.
Dry
Yeah.
layer.
And as long as that material isn't too terrible, I should be still all right. Yeah, it might not work as well, and might not be wicking as well or anything like that. But
Yeah.
if I choose my materials right, I'm not going to absolutely screw myself in those situations. So I don't think. I mean, you're having to pack it all out there anyways. You might as well, like I said, not waste your time with certain materials, I think. So that's my own theory. I feel like if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it.
Right.
Yeah,
Got to use what you got.
for sure. It's a good point. I think that's why, like I said, I've been on the hunt for. I mean, I've got a lot of different pants and stuff. And this is not referring to like base layers or anything, but I mean, it is going to be part of my layer system. But I've got a lot of different pants, but most of them are high cotton content.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to add some pants to my cabinet that have that are a more technical pant. I don't have very many technical pants right now.
Mhm.
But so yeah, I'm gonna try a few and see what works good. But I think that kind of goes along with that too. Like, maintain that thought process of like, why would you wear something that is gonna hurt you when it gets wet, or is gonna be negative in certain conditions, when there's so many. I mean, we live in the benefit of the modern age where we have all of this
The
technology
information's out
and
there.
information and materials that are being used like in mass, like even 10, 15 years ago, like if you were going to buy, well, it's probably longer. I'd say a good 20 years ago. If you were going to buy like a technical pant, you were going to spend a huge amount of money on it. It was going to be hard to get, very specialty. But now it's like so many companies are making technical pants and
Yep.
different blends, and so, and that's just one thing. I mean, you look at all of this stuff. I mean, you've got just and I'm sure Ed will get into it, but just in insulation alone, you've got so many different types and materials, and it's so awesome. So it's like, take advantage of that, especially while we can, while it's readily available.
Yep.
Add that stuff into your wardrobe.
Yep.
So yeah. Warm layer time.
Yep, it is. It is the insulation layer time. So breaking this down, basically how the insulation layer works is it's going to trap air next to your potty. So think like a puffy down coat.
Yep.
It traps a whole lot of air in all them goose feathers. Whereas, say like a windbreaker, for lack of better terms, doesn't have any air in there. It's just a piece of fabric to break the wind, and there's just no insulation there. So that would be more of a shell layer, which we'll get into later. Words are just so hard for today. I think they're hard every day, but more so today.
More so when they're getting caught on.
More
record.
so. Yep. There's no oops, let me redo that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the insulation layer, kind of like Jake was saying, is a lot more broad in the amount of fabrics used and types than the base layer. Base layer is you're kind of set in your ways.
Yeah.
Where you have a lot more freedoms as far as the insulation layer. So how to sum it up, what is an insulation layer? It's basically any layer that is not the layer next to your skin or a shell layer, which again, we'll talk about the shells here later. We're going inside to outside. So things that could be considered examples, some insulation layers. You have, kind of like Stephen was saying earlier, heavier or more base layers that are not the layer touching your skin would be considered insulation layer. Fleece, down, synthetic down, wool, and soft shells. So again, kind of thing we're preaching this whole podcast here is layering. The idea is to have a lot of smaller layers rather than one giant layer. And that just lets you play with those conditions in your activity level as far as taking things off, putting things on.
Yep.
You get into those heavier jackets, and you're kind of limited to your options, wear it or don't, and you're either going to sweat or freeze because you sweat. So, keep the layers thinner. It's a general rule. So some things we want to keep in mind when we're talking about insulation layers is wind is kind of a big one, especially up here in Alaska. It's always blowing wind. Yeah, it's crazy.
And sometimes it is cold wind.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, even in the summer.
It is.
So.
Sometimes it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
For us Alaskans, when it hits that 70-degree mark, man, we're dying.
Yeah.
It's just too hot. So the problem with wind, why it creates an issue for us, is it comes in and it'll push out all that air that we've heated up in that gap. So instead of having that warm air next to our body, it blows it away. It's replaced with cold air from the wind. So as far as insulation layers go, you'll see some things like some fleece and some soft shells that have a wind stopper, or other kind of windproof layers kind of mixed in there. And those are generally a good thing, but you keep in mind too that if the wind's not coming in, it's not very breathable also. So again, everything's got a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
Can't have your cake and eat it.
Why?
I know it's horrible. Humidity is a thing to keep in mind too, right? Your sweat level, the humidity of the air, just ambient humidity, rain, that kind of stuff. So water transfers that heat more so than air. So if we start getting wet, we're just going to lose a lot of that heat quicker than if it was just air in there. So
right,
that's kind of the disadvantage there. And that goes for sweat and just water. So again, point back to the base layers and managing your amount of layers. Another one you'll see a lot is compression. So, right, we have this layer that's created this air gap around us, a little shell of air, our little safety bubble. And then you start putting things on. You got your packs, your rucks, your plate carriers, chest rigs, rifle slings, whatnot. It's going to compress those layers, which takes away that air gap in there. And we'll kind of get into here when we start talking about down and synthetic down, that compression over time and repetitive compression kind of breaks those down pretty quick. Then I think the last thing before we really dive into the types of fabric to talk about is the fit, right? Base layers we wanted tight, skin tight. You get your best transfer of your sweat that way. Insulation layers, however, you want them generally loose, right? You don't want them just flopping in the wind and just
wearing a parachute.
Look like trash, right? Right. But going back to what I mentioned about the air, right? If we have them tight fitting, there's less air floating around in there. It's just warm. But if we have them loose, it's got a little bigger air gap in there, keeps us a little warmer. However, you go too loose, then you're just flapping in the wind, and it's not good either. But you'll kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, which actually Jacob's always told me that for forever ago, pretty much. Like every time we bought like insulation layers, he's always like, dude, just get a baggy, man. They work better. And I'm always like, dude, I always just thought you're just like...
Just making it up.
Yeah, just making it up.
No.
Yep. Nope, there's science to it.
No.
Science.
That's a huge, like, yeah.
But I mean, you've been telling me that since I was like since I've gotten back.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously me and you, we've lived together our whole lives. So it's like,
Yeah.
not like lived together, but I mean, like we've been around each other our entire lives. So it's like,
Now, like we said in an earlier podcast, we still share a room, dude.
yeah, dude.
Our wives are like, what?
No. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, you know, brother stuff. You're just kind of like, all right, dude, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, you're done. You don't actually know. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I mean, it does work. Like the more I've experienced it, you know.
In fact, like you'll find yourself being cold if you're if it's too tight. You're just, you know, it goes back to what you're saying about compression. Like, if you don't have that layer, then you're just going to be struggling.
Yep.
Like, I've definitely seen that a lot, time and time again. Like, I just bought this new jacket. I'm like, well, dude, it's like skin tight.
It's tight, man.
It's as tight as your base layer, you know? Like, yeah, you're going to be cold. And they're just like, then you're just chasing layers. You're just trying to like create a thermal layer, but you've got so many layers on now that you're just like,
just,
you know,
just the Michelin man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've got to have that. That actual air trapped that warms. That is like the key.
Yep.
I think a lot of people get confused with that. They think, oh, well, it's the down, or it's the, you know,
it's the fabric itself.
Yeah, that's making me warm. It's like, no, actually the fabric more often than not is actually cold.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get a little bit of that temperature variance where like it's cold on the outside, but it's also cold outside. So it's a lot, unless you get a wind, like you were just saying.
Yep.
You get this nice little like atmosphere basically that you've set up for yourself.
Ecosystem.
Yeah. It's like this is an extreme example that I don't fully understand. So I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going here.
Send it.
You're gonna be like, what? NASA spacesuits are completely sealed, obviously,
right,
and create a barrier between them and the the vacuum of space, which is like if you're facing the sun, and it does two things. It's insulation, which insulation also insulates you from heat. A lot of people don't realize that either. But yeah, so that suit is an insulation. It's literally a spaceship. Like it's like a personal spaceship, which is kind of crazy, but it has its life support that's insulated inside. You know, the person's insulated inside, and I'm talking about the big white suits that they wear. You know, when they go out and smash around in space and do whatever they do, just launch our tax dollars into orbit. No, I'm sure they're doing cool stuff.
Space Force.
They're way cooler than I am, so they can keep doing it. Steven's like, where are we going? And when they're facing the sun, it's like incredibly hot. It's like insanely hot. And just on the opposite side of their body, it's like just insanely cold. But on the inside of their body, it doesn't matter because they have that, that insulation that's trapped around them. So it's not the fabric of the suit that's like touching them, keeping them warm. It's that atmosphere that they've built inside the suit. So like in a way less cool level, we're doing that when we wear our insulation layer.
Yep.
So, you're just controlling the atmosphere around your body. So, That's why it's
guarantee our
important to have
audience
layers.
just understands it so much more now.
Yeah, dude, it explained it so well.
Yep.
You're welcome. I knew what you needed. That was
For
a
those
waste
of
of
you who
time.
want to be astronauts when you're kids, congratulations.
Yeah, you are every time you
are
put your
now
layering
an
system
astronaut.
on.
All you need to do is go on layer.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, but I mean, it's just
Elon Musk.
Yep.
it's just important to understand. I've seen that misunderstood so many different times. Like,
Yeah. And I did
know.
for the longest time too.
yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you think like, oh, this needs to touch my skin.
Yep.
It's like, no, you need like a good amount of space
Yep.
for that
crazy,
body to
just
heat
air.
that air. Yeah.
Yep. I think the only thing better than air for insulation is the lack of air. Like you get those like vacuum thermoses. Dude,
Oh,
they just
yeah.
stay hot or cold forever.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there.
Well, and
You
that's
can't transfer that heat because there's nothing there. It's
Right.
crazy.
well, that's also like going back to going back to space,
Going back
dude.
to NASA, man.
Jumping back up there with Elon
Yep.
up there and with NASA, dude. Steven's getting destroyed when you're facing the sun, dude.
Yep.
No. All right, I promise I'm done.
That's what to say,
Yeah.
dude. I don't feel like you're qualified enough to be
I'm
talking
not,
about
dude,
this.
but it's yeah. I don't think very many people are at all, but I'm definitely not. You can put me in the not category. But yeah, the heat that's coming off the sun obviously like is uninhibited. So
dude.
there's
All the
nothing to
radiation,
stop it.
man.
It's a vacuum, so it's just smashing whatever it hits,
Yep.
touches, whatever. So
All right, let's get into some
All right.
materials before we never do.
Let's talk about materials here.
all right. So first we have the captured cell that they use inside the NASA suits. I'm just kidding.
Oh no,
No, I don't
did
know.
not come prepared.
Nope. Go ahead.
Fleece. We got fleece. Just wearing the old pop bottles.
What?
Yeah, dude. That's what it feels like every time I'm wearing fleece. It's just, I don't know.
Like pop bottles?
Yeah, like the old plastic pop bottles, man. It just, I don't
I
know.
thought fleece is like really soft.
Dude, I don't know. Not for me. I don't know. It's weird.
Dude, it's rough, dude.
It's weird.
Is it?
No, I like fleece.
Oh.
I got that fleece coat that I wear all the time.
Yeah.
Fleece is actually made out of something like that though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's all I mean that's so fleece is actually kind of came about by these I hate to use the term woke outdoor people, but I don't
Oh,
know.
dude, I was
The,
hoping you were gonna say NASA.
the old like granola munchers, man. Like not I don't want to say that in a bad way, but
yeah.
but
Just the old
yeah, it's all
granola, dude.
Yeah, it's just recycled material, man.
Sick.
So dude, you're just helping out the old planet by reusing things and keeping your body warm.
That's kind of cool, actually.
It is
Yeah.
really funny that when you research this stuff, the amount of companies that are like, let's talk about our carbon footprint for making this product. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't give a crap about
I don't either.
that.
I want all the carbon. Yep. Yep.
I'm here for all the carb,
I
dude.
don't know if it's
I'm
because
like-
we're in Alaska and global
like a
warming just sounds like
surefire
a good
suppressor.
thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're always like, that sounds interesting
Yeah.
whenever I hear about global warming.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, climate change
Climate change is different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's happened for
Yeah,
centuries.
cycles,
like
man.
there's
It goes in
recorded
cycles. Yep.
climate change, and we're in climate change, but it just doesn't seem to affect Alaska really. We're just always like
Yep.
sick.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yep. So going back to fleece.
Yeah.
Fleece does pretty good. It's a great layer. It's lightweight. It's moisture wicking, breathable. There's a couple different types of fleece you'll see. Yeah, it's a great insulation layer. It's packable, light, all that jazz. So polar fleece, this is kind of your stereotypical, when you think of fleece, this is what you see in your mind.
Yeah.
It works really great in cold climates. You'll see it's pretty common for that to be treated with some kind of windproof material as well, and they'll specifically state that it does or whatnot. So it's not. Don't assume that all fleece is treated with windproof material. It'll say something in there like Gore wind stopper, or insert your your company's title for their windproofing stuff. It kind of comes in all sorts of different flavors and weights and densities and whatnot. It dries pretty quick. It doesn't get saturated with water, so that's great. Again, going back to the old windproof section we talked about briefly earlier, if something is windproof, it's also not very breathable. So you can't have all the things.
So fleece actually sounds like it's actually really solid.
It is. It's great
Insulation layer.
Yep. I think it's the.
But to say, if it can't be saturated,
yeah,
and it still wicks moisture.
Yep.
Sounds like it's a great layer, actually.
Yep. So the old, going back to the Equix system, it's level 3. It's a little Polartec fleece jacket.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
The old fleece
The
jacket.
old fleece.
I still rock that bad boy every once in a while, man.
Yep.
They're sick. They're cozy.
They're super soft. They don't feel like Coke bottles.
They don't feel like Coke bottles. Do Pepsi bottles feel any different?
They
Maybe.
might be softer. I don't know.
Might be. Sometimes you'll also see fleece with like a DWR finish. So what that is that's a durable water repellency.
Nice. I've been wondering what that meant for a while now.
Yes.
I see it
So,
everywhere.
Yeah.
DWR finished.
Yeah. Nobody ever really tells you what it is. They just kind of assume you know. If you know, you know.
Durable water
Durable.
repellency.
Yeah. Don't let the name fool you. It's not very durable.
Oh.
That is something that you need to retreat frequently. So basically, it's like a spray-on water repellency.
Okay.
And it works by just beating up the water before it has time to soak up into your fabric. And don't get me wrong, it does work. But as your fabric gets dirty, or there's just so much water coming down, it'll start to wet out and soak in, and then it's over. So getting dirty, excessive amounts of water, and then just things wearing down on it. Like if you're wearing a pack, the straps rubbing on you will just rub that finish off. So that is things to keep in mind. But like I said, that is something you can reapply, and I usually do yearly. Come back from a hunting trip or something for the year. Hunting's all done. I'll retreat everything, wash it all, retreat it. Nikwax, it's a great company, Nikwax. They make like a direct wash-in and I think they call it a TX.
The spray-on.
And a spray-on too.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they make it for different materials. Like they make it for leather, or they'll make it for...
Yep.
Like you just got to read the bottle.
Yep.
It's crazy.
And they have washes for your technical clothing, and all of these are considered technical clothing.
And honestly, I
Maybe
would
not
say
the spacesuit.
anytime we come back from the field, like
It's
I don't
the most
remember what we
technical.
used,
The
but
most.
we would re-waterproof our like ponchos and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
In the military, but it's smart. Like you get back from the field, just do it right then.
Yep.
You come back from like a long field exercise or whatever.
Take care of your stuff, man.
Take care of your stuff,
It's
because
expensive.
if you do need it, it'll be ready to go. At a moment's notice.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's too easy. Like it's just part of the regiment that you just get used
gear
to.
maintenance.
Yep.
Got to maintain your stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff you pay a lot of money for. So,
Yep.
like, take care of your investment.
Yep.
And your investment will take care of you.
Yeah, dude. Yep. So moving right along in the fleece here, we also have a micro fleece. It's generally more lightweight than your polar fleece. Makes it a little bit more breathable, even. Like I said, even polar fleeces, unless you're in the windproof status, it's pretty breathable. But again, with breathability, you're giving up some insulation value too, right? That wind's just going to come in and take it all away. And then you kind of got some stretch fleece. Usually that's in like panels for articulation and whatnot. So that'll just be sewn in. that's about it for the fleece, man. It's kind of there it is.
Sweet.
So big takeaways is it's a great layer. You can get it in all sorts of water repellency and windproof styles. All around lightweight, wicks moisture well, packable, all the things you want.
Nice.
Good stuff.
And moving along, still insulation here. Got the down versus synthetic down. So these are like your Michelin Man suits. The old marshmallow suits, man.
The old super warms.
The poofies.
Dude, the best.
Yeah, it's like the best
I
layer.
was about to say, like, if you're in Alaska, man, you love it.
Yep. So these this is a great layer also. It's very warm, light, and it can pack down very small. So goose down specifically, true down, is the warmest for the weight. It's also the most packable. All right, everything has trade-offs. So when real, true goose down gets wet, it is trash. It just loses all insulation value. It just turns into little tiny balls of goose down
Feathers.
instead of being all fluffy, man. It's just like you're a sad duck out there.
Yep.
Which is so weird. You'd think
Yeah.
you'd be good at being wet because it's like, from geese.
Yeah.
But I guess not, dude.
Can't have it all, dude.
So, yeah, I think this kind of translates over to the fabric world as well. But you look at geese, and that water will beat up, just roll off of them from their outer feathers.
Right.
So, like the goose down, the down itself is not their outer
against their
feathers.
body.
It's up against their body. Yep. They are just the layering kings.
Dude.
We all just want to be geese.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Dude, that geese aggression, too, is
Dude.
is a key feature of the goose.
It is. Yes. They taste great, too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. All right.
So I don't know if I do want to be a goose.
Maybe I don't. So before we move on to synthetic too, I mean, it also applies to synthetic a little bit, but you'll see some companies that offer true goose down, but add a nice either waterproof panels and patches on your top sides, like the tops of your shoulders and your arms.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to take the most wear from packs, as well as if it's raining, that's going to take the brunt of it. They'll either have nice DWR finish or sewn on more panels there that are waterproof. So you can get away in some cases with actually wearing goose down. So all depends on what you're doing. Your everyday walking around town jacket, probably fine. I still don't know if I'd use it as like a survival type thing, because if it does get wet, either because it soaks through or it's raining sideways or whatnot, you're still losing it then.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the trade-offs for synthetic down, kind of what we're segueing into there. So for synthetic downs, it's going to maintain its loft when it's wet. It doesn't just shrink up and like goose down does. So that being said, for that reason, it regulates your temperature a little better too.
Nice.
Again, true down is warmer, but the synthetics just regulate it a little better. The other crazy part about this is it's actually cheaper than down.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Synthetics are always cheaper.
Yep.
That's
'cause
not probably
there's-
always the case, but
Probably, because I mean,
Yeah.
like you got to go out and
You
take
gotta
it
find
from
some
an
animals,
animal.
man. Yep.
Like, yeah, that's kind
And
of
we
wild.
just talked about that goose aggression, man. I mean,
yeah.
dude, can you imagine trying to get some down off a goose? It's
Yeah,
probably
how many goose farmers are lost in the
just
harvesting of down?
Yeah, dude. I'm sure there's There's probably stories about this. So the interesting part about the synthetic down is there's actually a couple different shapes, styles that are out there of the actual fibers on the inside. So we've got one called a short staple insulation. So this is small polyester fibers that are independent from one another. They tend to be less bulky, pretty good warmth to weight ratio, and they compress pretty small. However, these tend to lose their loft quicker than the others we're going to talk about here after being compressed over and over. Like if you stuff it into your pack or in a stuff sack or whatnot, it just kind of breaks down a little quicker, stops being lofty. So some companies that use the short staple insulation, like your Primaloft, your 3M Thinsulate, and your Columbia's Omni Heat, are going to be that short staple insulation. The next one that comes about is a continuous filament. So this is made of long synthetic fibers formed into coils. So the benefits you gain here are it tends to be more durable than your short staple. It can take more of those compressions before it starts to just break down. However, because they're long fibers instead of short fibers, they don't compress as well as the short staple. And some people using that are like Patagonia's Plumafil, Primaloft Silver, and Climate Shield Apex. And then the last kind of big one you see is a cluster fiber, and this is a neat little nugget. It's similar to natural down in shape, so it's small little balls of polyester. So this causes it to lay, like conform to the body pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, the downside to this, it's hard to say it's a downside. It's not as warm as true down, but it's on par or greater insulation value than the other synthetics. Some people using that are North Face Thermoball and G-Loft. So G-Loft is a new one to me. Kind of came about it through one of our buddies. Kind of bought a coat and said it was made of G-Loft, and nobody knew what G-Loft was, so we had to figure it out like any good American. Funny story, it's actually not American. It's a foreign fabric. I think it was Corinthia was kind of who came up with it. But what's super neat about this G-Loft is, dude, it's straight up polar bear fur.
What?
Yeah, dude. So it's
like synthetic polar bear fur?
Yep, synthetic polar bear fur.
Whoa.
So they use these hollow fibers and then shaped them kind of like springs. It's just, dude, they're just springy, and the big benefit is it provides good warmth to weight ratio, but it can compress for a long time and multiple times. Kind of has the best durability as far as the synthetic world goes.
Huh.
So they're making all sorts of clothing and even sleeping bags out of this stuff now. It's kind of coming in and just taking over.
That's cool.
Yep.
I've been seeing it a lot.
Yep.
So, been looking at a lot of sleeping bags that use G-Loft.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, dude. Technology, it's amazing.
Yep.
That's all I got for the old down operation. Yep. Kind of breezing through. Of course, we can always have more wool layers. Kind of, as discussed earlier, it has all the same advantages and disadvantages. I don't know if we need to dive back into all those again.
Okay.
Just varying levels. Like I think you got that you got a wool coat from who was that? Was that Did you get it from Varstaleka too? That
I got wool pants.
Oh, the pants.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
I didn't like them personally.
Yeah.
I sent them back.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they just weren't working for me.
Huh. What was the deal?
It just doesn't work out, dude.
So they were cool.
Not stretchy enough, huh?
Dude, they were so restricting.
Yep.
Yeah, like
No
trying
give.
to do like dynamic motion. Like we did a few rucks and I was like, nope. Like I knew immediately. It was making me so, like it was like wearing me out because they weren't even very tight. It was like you got to that like doing big stride stuff, which I take just naturally just bigger strides. Like people always say I walk like Bigfoot. Like I just kind of like bound around. So,
nice.
I've had so many people be like, dude, you just look like here comes Barlow walking like Bigfoot, like arms swinging, you know. I don't know. It's been said for a while. And anyways, so because of that, you know, I like to take bigger strides, and it just wasn't letting me. Like it was something about the crotch area, I wish
the groin.
Yeah, like I wish it had maybe like elastic there.
It also looked like it was just so tight on your butt, dude.
Yeah, and it's that European fit where it's more like supposed to wear it pretty high waisted, and that's just not. I'm just not doing that. So it just didn't work. I'm sure they're great pants. Like they were really well made, like super well made pants. I could see how you would never break them. Like they were super tough. But
I wonder if you gave them a longer break-in period if they would have.
No, I tried them a while. Like I tried them on several different movements.
Didn't I try them for some reason?
Yeah, I think I let you put them on and you were like, nope. Because you were thinking about getting them and then you put them on one time and you were like, no, I'm never going to own anything like that. Like you were just so, and I was like, really? Like I was still kind of trying to accept it. I was like, no, they're sick. He's like, no. Steve was just like, no. And then, like not long after that, I was like, can I send these back? And
dude, we've
like,
been on the pants venture since then, dude.
Yep.
Dude, the best.
We were just talking about it last night too, weren't we?
Yeah, I was asking Ed about it, and I was like, dude, I need to find some good pants. And I think for me, it's like, sorry, we're tangenting here, but I want stretchy, like a more soft shell style pant, like a kind of stretchy and light, because you can always layer up underneath it.
You're like Nacho Libre, dude.
Yeah,
I was just
thinking that.
Yeah, dude. I was just talking to Colton about this, and he was like, well, what do you do when your legs get cold? And I was like, dude, my legs just aren't cold very much, especially if you have like,
if you're moving.
Always got my base layer, and then you can just add a waffle, like a heavy layer over that base.
Yep.
Dude, your legs are never going to get cold.
Yep. Even just wearing combat pants or trousers or, whatever.
And if you're rocking an overweight on top of that,
dude,
you're just like toasty, dude. You're too hot.
So I don't want like insulated pants. You can manage that with your layers, I think.
Yep. No, I agree.
So yeah, I think from now on I'm going to be seeking out the lightweight kind of.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you can rock. Yeah, it's summertime.
Pants.
You can wear them in the summertime. You can wear them year round.
Yep.
It's a good pant. You can wear them like.
And combat pants, I think we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
Combat pants, I think, are a good fit there. The only problem I have with some combat pants is that they do have quite a bit of cotton in them.
Yeah.
Which is not a huge deal, but I would rather not up here in the winter.
Yep.
You know, you take a knee in the snow for a long period of time, and you're wearing cotton pants, you're gonna have the old, the old just sticky snow on the knee, dude.
Yep.
So, I don't know. That's a long answer for yes, I've had wool recently, but
hey, we're here for experiences. That's
what
we're getting. Yep. And it actually just perfectly dove right into the old soft shell.
Oh, sweet.
Since we're speaking of soft shells. So soft shell is it's pretty versatile. That's what's great about it.
I love soft shells.
Dude,
I'm a soft shell guy.
Dude, just a softie.
Yeah.
They can be used as a insulating layer or as a shell layer if it's just not raining a whole lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times they are water repellent. So if it's just taking a light little passing, shower, man. The soft shell's going to weather the storm, but if it turns into a thing, yeah, soft shell just won't cut it. That's where the real shell comes in.
Yeah,
Real hard
absolutely.
shell.
Yep.
So generally, a soft shell is not going to provide the same warmth as a fleece or a down or a synthetic. But that trade-off is you generally get wind and rain protection. So that's kind of how the name came about. The old soft shell is it's not quite a hard shell, but it's got a nice little insulating value to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely it's almost like the merger of the insulation layer and the, your shell layer.
Yep.
So it's kind of the old hybrid.
Yep. In fact, I know we were talking about it the other day. One of my favorite, if I had to pick one piece of gear out of my hunting set that I like, it's my soft shell. It covers 80 to 90% of temperature range and weather conditions. I mean, unless it's just absolutely coming down rain-wise or it's just super cold, dude, that thing's going to take it.
Yep.
It's got pit zips on it, so I can manage, if it's just a little on the hot side, you just open up the zipper on the front and the pit zips and let some of that air out. Dude, soft shells, it's where it's at.
Kind of not great at anything, but good at everything.
Yep.
Yeah, they're sweet. Honestly, too, for like, it sounds weird because a lot of times soft shells are light and thin, but they work really good in the snow and the extreme cold temperatures because, again, you can layer underneath them, just like we're talking about the pants. And they breathe a lot better than, 100 times better than a hard shell.
Yeah.
Which is good. So you can manage, they're kind of already managing your temperature a little bit just by how breathable they are. So it's letting moisture evaporate, different things like that. And then, yeah, you're really managing your temperature with all of your thermal layers and stuff underneath there and your base layers and everything. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of soft shells. Again, like I would say for me going out and doing stuff, I've probably got a soft shell on most of the time. And then, yeah, if it starts raining, or if it's if it's already rained and the woods are super wet, that's where you pass by like a super wet area of grass and your soft shell is just going to be soaked.
Yeah.
But, if it's pouring the rain or you've got like extremely saturated woods or area, then yeah, it's probably time to bust out the old hard shell. But yeah. And
even if it's a light rain, but it goes on for a while and you're wearing a pack or plate carrier or chest rig or something, that fabric's going to soak up some water.
Yeah.
And just keep it right there on that layer. That'll soak through eventually too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to keep in mind. If that rain just keeps on coming down, it might be time to throw on a hard shell.
Yep. Well, have we made it to the...
Dude, I think we have made it to hard shells now.
Time to go from soft to hard.
Oh,
no.
I was going to go somewhere about Ninja Turtles. Turtles in a half shell, but...
Nice.
Yeah.
I took it a different direction.
He did. That's right.
It's okay.
That's right. It works. It's a thing. So the shell layer is going to be just our weather resistant layer. He's just dying over there. These fabrics are great for wind protection, waterproofness, and you're kind of limited again, like Jacob said earlier, just kind of bottlenecks back down into Gore-Tex is almost the only option out there. That kind of checks all the boxes. So Gore-Tex is a laminate, waterproof, yet microporous membrane. That's from them. It's really thin, light, can pack down pretty well. And the idea of it is it lets water vapor out, so sweat, letting that out, but not allowing water to come in. I find a lot of that to be great in theory, and marketing. So it is really good at waterproofness.
Yeah.
I will give it that. Great at keeping the water out. But it's also pretty good at keeping the water in too. It's not as breathable as they really kind of make it out to seem. However, if you're comparing it to other options such as rubber, well, hands down, it's definitely better than that.
Oh, yeah.
Just wearing the old Helly Hansons rucking around.
Dude, no.
I've been there.
Soup kitchen, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Dude,
Nasty.
That was my go-to.
I just chafe thinking about that, dude.
Yeah. That was my go-to.
I go to
many
sleep
years.
thinking about that.
Oh, no.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. So
That
Gore-Tex
is
definitely
swamp.
definitely better than that.
Yeah, don't get thick rubber
Yeah.
rain gear unless you're working. If you are working in the Bering Strait on a crab boat,
Yep.
that is the only time you should have rubber gear.
Yeah, dude.
Even like I worked construction for a long time, and everyone was always like, "Yeah, you just got to get your Helly Hansons," and I was like, "Dude, no." I was rocking like outdoor research hard shells and stuff in construction. So it was expensive coat to be rocking on a framing job, but dude, I was actually like, it was breathing like you said, compared to rubber rain gear, like, or even like,
I was
honestly,
gonna say, rubber rain gear's got its place though.
It does.
yeah, on
I
a
was gonna say,
crab
Bering
boat
Strait.
in the Bering Strait. That's it.
Crab boat on Bering Strait.
That's
I
it.
would
That's
say on the back
only-
of a hydroseeder
It-
doing highway spraying. Oh, absolutely.
No, dude, crab boat in the Bering Strait.
Anyone that's done hydroseeding knows.
Yeah, I haven't, so I can't make that judgment. But I can tell you that you should only have rubber gear on if you're in the Bering Strait. Crab fishermen.
Crab fishing anywhere else? No.
No, I'm
just the
kidding.
Bering Strait.
Which I also have never
I was
done.
gonna say, if you're not
so-
doing much movement,
no, I'm sure it's nice for that.
if you're just standing and you're
Yep.
just doing lots of just standing in the cold and wet, then
Yeah.
that's where it's got its place.
No, obviously it has its place. I mean, but for the kind of stuff we
No.
talk about doing,
Yep.
it's miserable.
Yep.
I've also noticed that with like cheaper rain gear, and it's not rubber, like Frog Togs. I've noticed that more breathable, but still not Gore-Tex.
No, they're definitely not as durable as Gore-Tex.
What is that material?
I'm not sure, but I have had some in the past as just emergency. Like I need to buy something for the kids.
Yeah,
And
it's so cheap.
it's like I'm not going to buy.
Is it just their take on Gore-Tex, basically? Then
I don't think it's trying to be Gore-Tex. It's
a similar
basically
idea.
like
Yeah.
they might make Gore-Tex. I don't know.
no,
No.
I think Sika does, didn't they?
No, Gore.
No, I'm saying they might make gear that has got
Oh.
Gore-Tex
Oh,
in
okay.
it.
That could be.
Sorry.
I see. Yeah, the Frog Tog stuff. If you're just like going out to watch the parade, yeah, it's great. But it is super fragile.
It
It'll
is.
tear very easy.
It's 3-layer polypropylene
Do not get
with
that confused
melted
with
or welded seams
3-layer
through
Gore-Tex.
ultrasonic sound waves. Oh yeah, that's
What?
sound. Yeah, that's a type of welding.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Crazy.
That's
Anyways,
crazy.
there you go. That's what it's made out of.
That's
But
what it is.
you can get that stuff for $30.
Yeah, it's
Like, it's cheap.
hardware store. Yep.
Anyways,
Yep.
back to Gore-Tex.
Back to Gore-Tex. So Gore-Tex comes in a few different categories. And that's usually classified by how many layers it is. So you'll see like 2L, 2.5L, 3L, and then there's a couple other Gore products I'll get into here in a second too, briefly. So 2L is kind of as it sounds, is a 2-layer fabric. Usually it's your harder outer layer and then like a mesh kind of inner layer. That's to keep that waterproof layer off your skin or other fabrics. So Gore-Tex itself doesn't have an insulation value to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's raining, the inside, it won't be wet, but it'll feel cold, almost wet. It's weird. So that's kind of where they throw that other layer in there too, is just to help keep that off your skin if that's the only layer you're wearing. 2L is the cheaper version of Gore-Tex. But kind of with that, it's not as durable either. The 2.5 layer kind of tries to bridge that gap. Weirdly enough, it's the lighter of the 3 layers. I don't know what kind of voodoo magic they make happen with that, but they do. 3 layer, the 3L, that's the bomb-proof stuff. That is just there to take a beating. So doing any of this like outdoor activities, this is something you're going to look at, is the durability.
Making sure that's a 3-layer, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want it to last.
Yeah.
Like anything we've said,
you're going to pay for it. Like we've talked about those Arc'teryx jackets, the Alpha Severe SV, whatever it's called, bomb-proof jacket. It's like $700 or $800. It's crazy for a Gore-Tex shell.
Yeah, that's also Arc'teryx. So,
but it is bomb-proof. So there's that. And then, like I said, there's a couple of those outliers. You got Gore Pro. Supposedly, it's supposed to be more durable than 3-layer.
Really?
Gore Infinium is more of like a wind stopper, and it's only water resistant, but it's pretty breathable.
I almost thought that was something you'd find on the Infinity Gauntlet or whatever that thing's called.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Just the old
just Thanos coming in hard with the Gore Infinium.
Gore Infinium, dude. Yep.
You have to go through a non-stop rainstorm for 2 years in order to get that.
Yep.
To get the Gore Infinium stone.
Yep. Yep, it's the secret stone. So
I've actually never heard of that brand, honestly. So
yeah, it's kind of a thing they're playing with. Like I said, it's not waterproof. It's only water resistant, but it's got wind stopper to it.
Oh.
And it's pretty breathable. So again, the trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
So 2.5 liters actually the lightest, though?
It is. Lightest of the 3 traditional waterproof, breathable constructions.
2.5 layer.
Yep.
Did I say liter? 2.5 layer, I meant.
If you said liter, I knew what you said. I heard layer.
I meant layer. If I said liter, I don't remember now.
Yeah.
But
the listeners will tell us.
Yeah, I was just, that's kind of wild. But all right.
Yep. It is. That's why I said I don't know what kind of voodoo magic they do to pull that off, but they do.
It must have something to do with the thickness of the layers, like because they're doing that half layer, maybe one of their layers is really thin or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm not saying that's what they do, but
Yep.
Cool.
And then as a shell, I mean, it wouldn't be complete without saying ponchos are always an option.
Dude, they are definitely always an option.
Yep.
And I think even if you've got some hardcore, just super sick 3-layer Gore-Tex jacket shells,
Yep.
You should still have some ponchos in the mix.
You can always make a shelter out of a poncho.
Yeah, dude.
A little more difficult out of a jacket.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then we're going to talk about some of the old head and hands and the feet, man, because like I said, those are important too.
Dude, just wrapping it up with the most important parts, the head, the hands, and the feet, dude.
Head, shoulders,
knees and toes.
Yeah. I got lost there for a second.
This doesn't work. You had the head right.
Yeah.
You guys got toes.
Yeah. Yep. The good news is a lot of the same principles as we've kind of gone over apply here. So as far as hats go, beanies, whatever you want to call them, you can have your base layers, you can have your insulation layers, and your shell layers all the same. Something to keep in mind, wind stopper works great on hats, keeps you really warm. However, you will not be able to hear very much. It blocks out a lot of that sound. So if you're just out there smashing through the trees, doing what you do, even as far as hunting goes, it cuts down on what you can hear pretty considerably, believe it or not. I tend to, if I'm wearing that hat, I'll wear it up above my ears just so I can still hear.
Yep. Keeping those ears out and about is
Yep.
important, especially if you're doing kind of the mission set that we harp on for sure.
Yep. And then going into that, talking about some lids, some helmets.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wearing hats and then you put your helmet on top of that, if you're trying to run nods at that point, your helmet is just swimming around your face. You get all those layers in there and it just starts smashing about. So Unity made a cold weather liner, what they call it. It's basically just like just a little hat that just smashes into your helmet. You actually take your pads out, you put this liner in, put the pads back in, and that way your helmet's not sliding all over the place.
Yep.
If you're not running nods, it's not a super huge deal, but trying to look through that tube while your helmet's just sliding all over the place, dude, that is just
Negatory.
Yeah.
Can't have
Can't
it
have
happen.
that. No. So that's a thing. It does exist. I don't remember how much it was. It was not very expensive, but
Yeah, I don't think they're bad. I don't know though.
I'll I'll go ahead and link some of this stuff in the description just so it's easy to go check out, some of these main things we've listed that we're like, yeah, this stuff's legit, this stuff's good.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I put it in the description for people to go look at.
mm-hmm. Ear Pro, if you're wearing some contacts or OpsCore or something like that, it's going to keep your ears a little toasty too, so
Oh yeah.
keep that in mind. The old sweat action there, those are not very breathable. Gloves. Again, you kind of got base layer, insulation layer, shell layer, just the same. A lot of times the insulation and the shell layer are combined. You'll have a base layer, and not all gloves have this. Some gloves are just one piece. You put them on or take them off. Nothing is stopping you from getting like a merino wool liner and putting it inside of there.
Yeah.
It's actually suggested having a couple pairs of liners in case your hands do sweat or get wet. You can change out those liners and
Your
still
gloves
stay
not done,
pretty
yeah.
toasty. Yep. So depending on what you're doing, right, you could go gloves, mittens, the old half mittens with a shooter finger.
Yep.
Something kind of important to keep in mind is some kind of tie off to keep your gloves connected to your body. If you got to take them off quick, you're either hunting or
Yep.
messing around in your pack, or got to do some pew pew action. You can rip them bad boys off, and they're not all lost, left floating in the snow somewhere.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to lose your gloves.
Yep.
So I think that's something Jacob showed me as well. I was in North Carolina, so I didn't get a bunch of like dealing with cold weather stuff. So he's been able to show me stuff. And I'm like, man, that makes sense. Like he was showing me like you can take like I have the outdoor research mittens and then I just run liners underneath them. And he's like, yeah, there's those lanyards there. And I'm like, what the heck are those for?
Yeah, you were like, these things why are they so long? They're stupid. They're just in the way. I was like, well, here's why.
Yep.
Yeah. And sure enough, like you hook them to your wrists and
Yep.
you can just ditch the mitten and run your trigger finger with your liners. And then you can just throw them back on as soon as you're ready to put your gloves back on. But
yeah, it's nice, man, to like I can't stress enough how important it is to keep your hands warm. Like when you start getting into and this will be a different podcast probably, but when you start getting into cold weather injuries, I think the most susceptible areas are like your fingers and toes and tips of your nose, ears, stuff like that, places that have limited circulation. So I think having good insulation on your fingers and hands is really important, especially because we use our hands, right? So, wearing a more workable glove with better dexterity underneath that mitten or over glove, I think is a great way to do it. And then, yeah, you got your keepers or your tie downs or lanyards on it, so you can pop those things off. So just general things like working on a shelter, whether you're running a gun, and no matter what it is, like it's harder to do in a mitten or like a big. I don't have mittens. I have these like my big gloves have fingers, but they're
It's bulky.
You're not doing a lot. They're very very thick. So, but it's cool because you got gloves like that are a good outer layer, but you can change out the insulation value on the inside, like with different inserts, or you can just wear like a working glove, like a mechanic's glove or something inside it. And then, so yeah, being able to pop your gloves on and off it's like the ultimate layering, because you're constantly changing that, but yeah, it's important to do. It's important to get in the habit of. So definitely invest. That's the thing too, like gloves like that, like big over gloves that have like Gore-Tex lining and stuff. They're not cheap.
Right.
But they're very, very worth it.
Yep.
Keep your fingers because it's a lot easier to lose them than you think.
Yep.
You start getting some frostbite that goes untreated and you're not able to rewarm yourself. Necrosis or dead tissues going to settle in and you're going to have a date with
then you won't have
the
to wear
finger
gloves
chopper.
again.
Yeah.
Something I actually forgot to mention the other day when we were kind of talking about all this too is they, if you've ever watched football, you get them guys that have them like hand warmers, like wear around their waists.
Yeah.
Dude, that is an option. You can get them suckers that just strap around your waist, or they even make some that are, and at this point it replaces your dangler on your chest rig or plate carrier.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But you can get them suckers, and it's always an option.
Yeah, the Core Performance, I think, makes the hand warmer, and what's cool about it, or at least they make a hand warmer that you're like what you're talking about, and you can mount it behind a dangler.
Oh,
yeah, so it actually doesn't
double down.
I've seen the ones that full on replace the dangler, but yeah, you can just literally sandwich it in between the dangler and your carrier.
Yeah, nice.
Or on your rig or whatever.
Yeah,
right in between or right behind. I mean, so it's like that's sweet.
Yep.
Yep. I feel like I just put my hands in my pockets.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a hand warmer though, so it's kind of awesome.
I mean, I know they're intended for that. It's basically just like a tube, right? That you like almost like in a hoodie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's got like fleece or something in it. I don't know, something.
Yep.
It's kind of cool though.
Snuggly.
I mean, the thing to kind of disadvantage to that is that if you're just marching around, it is hard to have your hands either in your pockets or in that thing and march around.
Yeah.
You
don't
need
be doing it.
Natural body mechanics, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Travis Haley here. The kinesthetic.
Whoa.
Micro movements. Dude, I can't even keep up with that guy. He's just awesome. But yeah, it is hard to.
He definitely gets into like habean plasticity and
dude, that's what I like about it.
Biomechanical membrane.
All about that. All about that. Just crazy science, man. Dude, I love it.
Go for it.
Keep it coming. If you're listening.
He's not.
But
cool if he was, we lost him at the NASA spacesuit part. So.
Oh man.
All right.
Feet. Dude.
Yeah, dude. Let's wrap this bad boy up with the feet.
The old feet action. Boots are a weird thing, right? You can't really layer your boots. You can layer your socks, and we'll get into that in a second. So footwear is kind of you have to pick one and maybe have a couple different sets depending on the temperature, right? It's always good to have at least two pairs of boots, one in your ruck, one on your feet, just in case you do get wet or sweaty or, whatever happens. So these are also broken down by weight. And these each individual person is going to be different. So the temperature value is kind of thrown up in this chart, or kind of a general idea, at least give you some place to start. So when you're looking at boots and you see, this one's 400 grams and this one's 800 grams, what in the world does that mean? I know when I was looking at my first pair of boots, I was like, all right, that's 600 gram insulation. Great. Like what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like I have no idea how to correlate that to anything. Is that like an Arctic winter boot? Like straight up South Pole, or like what are we talking? So hopefully this will at least give you a place to start, kind of an idea, and mess around with from there. Your 100 gram insulation is generally about 40 to 50 degrees. Again, we're imperial here. We're talking about Fahrenheit. Deal with it. Yeah. I can't math, so I won't do the conversion for everybody here.
Yeah, I tried a conversion in one of the last episodes and failed. So
yeah, dude, my dad knows.
We're going to stay away from him.
Yeah. My dad knows a pretty good method, and he tells me all the time, but I can never remember it. He worked in Canada for a number of years in oil platforms, and so he had it down. He could tell you in 10 or 20 seconds the conversion. It was pretty cool, but
nice.
Not me.
Some guys just got a mind for that.
Yeah. So that 100 gram is really good for like your spring, fall, everyday, running around kind of boots. You bump up to the 200 grams and you're good for about 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So maybe getting into your short hikes, your evening walks, kind of a thing. Your 400 gram insulation, we're starting to get into the 15 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Starting to get into that winter kind of range. These ones are going to be maybe for your hiking, right? You're not going to be static wearing these and being warm. So what's crazy about footwear is you actually lose a lot of your heat through the soles of your shoes.
Yeah.
It just sucks the heat right out of you. It's crazy. Your 600 gram insulation is good for about -5 to 10 degrees. This might be pretty good if you're rucking around in the winter, intermittently sitting for longer periods of time. And then once you bump up to the 800 grams, you're getting that extreme cold, -20 to -10 degrees, or you're just sitting around for period of time pulling security or whatnot, sit on a tree stand or whatnot. So again, it all depends on your activity level, your comfort level, if your feet run hot or cold. But hopefully that gives you some general ideas, places to start looking anyways. Then we got the old vapor barrier boots.
Oh yeah.
Dude, these are just a classic. The bunny boots, another real common name for them. Just the giant white monsters.
They are heavy.
Dude, they are heavy. They are bulky.
If you're in Alaska, you gotta have them.
You do. And as
or just cold areas in general.
Yeah. Something to keep in mind, a little off topic too, but if you're shopping for snowshoes, make sure that if these boots are something you have or are going to consider, that these suckers still work with your snowshoes, because some don't.
Yeah, and also make sure your snowshoes are rated for much heavier weight than...
Yeah.
Because you just added another 10 pounds with these boots. No, they're not that heavy, I don't think, but they're pretty heavy.
Yep. And again, generally these things you can pick these up for pretty cheap. Surplus stores.
You can.
I don't think they're quite as available as they used to. Like, they're out there, you can find them, but
yeah,
they're definitely not something you can just go down to Fred Meyer's and find. But,
right.
The problem with these boots is you are going to sweat.
Yeah.
It is just going to be a swampy mess down there, no matter what you do. But your feet are going to be warm. I don't think it's possible to be cold in those things.
You'd have to be in some pretty nasty stuff in order to be cold, or just
wet all the time for days. And
I think you run a stronger risk of like a immersion foot.
Yep, the old trench foot.
Having trench foot rather than having a cold weather injury on your feet.
Yep.
Which is bad. You don't want to be souping around in boots. You can help it. But if you're dealing with extreme cold weather and a lot of static positioning, then that's where these boots are really going to shine and do wonders for you.
Yep.
So for us to really get in the air, like a lot of pilots around here wear them because they're getting up in the wintertime and higher altitudes where the air's thinner and it's colder.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Crack those vents, boys.
Oh, yeah.
But if you do have or run these boots, I do recommend having quite a few pairs of socks and change them out frequently. Because like I said, you're going to sweat and you want to manage that.
Which that's probably good practice in general.
Yeah.
Definitely have a lot of socks.
Yep.
That's been a reoccurring theme in our podcast when we talk about gear.
This is exactly why it's kind of breaking down why we've pushed, having socks, because you got to take care of your feet. Your feet are what you're walking around on. So if you don't take care of your feet, whether that's because you don't keep them warm enough or you don't keep them dry enough, we kind of talked about some of the injuries that can happen. You can get trench foot, or, you can have your toes legitimately just like freeze.
Yep.
So, you just got to take care of your feet. I mean, that's everything on your body, but your feet are definitely really, really important. And that's why, that was just drilled into us in the military, like to the point that even our medics, or at least my medics, would like, hey, we got to check feet. And like everyone would pull their feet out of their shoes and let the medic check your feet, because, you would be in and out of draws all day long doing land nav or whatever it may be. And your feet would be soaked. And if you weren't changing your socks, then it was super common for guys to be like, yeah, we got to get you out of the field. And it's like, if you're talking about from like the Minuteman perspective, it's like,
that's all you got.
There's nowhere to go.
It's not like you can just leave the field.
Yep.
You're there. So,
and you've only got one set of feet.
Yeah.
They're the feet you're born with, and they're the feet you got, and you're not going to go get your feet changed out. So change out your socks so you don't have to change your feet out, because there's no feet to change to. You can change skin layers.
Yep.
You can only do that a couple times before it's going to be a bad day. So, yep.
So going right into socks, there's Dude, I actually got this idea from my dad, so sending one to him. We wear a lot of the muck boots when we're out hunting.
Yeah.
Just because we're doing water crossings all the time. It's cold, all that jazz. So wearing them, but the problem is they just get so swampy in there, man. They're just not breathable. So he decided one year he's going to buy some neoprene wading socks. Just wear these things, and that way all that moisture is retained in those socks, and end of the day comes, just pull them inside out, let them dry out, put them on again the next day. And dude, that kind of turned into a thing, man. That works really well for them. So they actually make vapor barrier socks, which is essentially like a Gore-Tex sock. And you can wear a pair of socks inside of those.
Like a merino wool or something?
Well, you can. A lot of guys actually recommend a synthetic.
Okay.
In the inner sock.
Yeah.
Because it'll dry faster. Because it's going to get wet in there.
Okay, yeah.
But it's going to save your boots from getting wet. So you kind of got that trade-off. So you put on a sock, you put this vapor barrier sock on, whether it's neoprene or there's a couple companies that make, like I said, those Gore-Tex socks. R-A-B makes some, and then you were telling me earlier about another one you kind of came across. Can't remember what you said it was.
So sealskin?
Well, there's the sealskin socks, but there's something else you had said.
No, so that's they're not. It's not a vapor barrier sock. What he was talking about.
Oh, I was talking about those right socks.
Yes, that sounds right.
Like WRIGHT.
Yep.
It's just playing off of like the pretty standard like two sock configuration where you have like a thin liner sock and then you wear a wool sock and you combine those two, so you're which is good to do, and this is 100% something you should do. But you have a liner sock that wicks your sweat away, and then your thick wool socks absorb that sweat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it keeps it off your feet. So it's a sock that has both of those properties pre-built into it, so it's one sock. And I haven't tried them. I don't have any personal experience with them, but I'd like to try them. I think they seem like they're going to be cool to and work good.
Yep.
So,
and then on the outside of these vapor barrier socks, so you got your generally synthetic on the inside, your vapor barrier socks. And then guys will put a wool sock on the outside of that.
Whoa.
So it's
a
a
3-sock system.
3-sock system. The good news is those first 2 layers are pretty thin.
Yeah. So their wool layer is just purely insulation.
Yep, insulation and padding and all them layers of your socks to help wear down on having some. Oh boy, back to the words.
Some insulation. Where are you trying to go with that? I don't know where you're going.
Just cut down on blisters.
Blisters.
And stuff.
Yep. All I could think about was moleskin, and I was like, nope, that's to fix this word. I can't remember what it is, but that's to fix it.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are all good options. Things you can play around with.
Definitely invest in good socks.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, it's something that I've said it so many times in this podcast, but man, you will just be so much more comfortable, happy, and operational if you have good socks.
Yep.
It's such a small, cheap thing. Like you can get good wool socks for anywhere between that $15 to $40 range. Like $40 is a lot for a pair of socks, but you get them, you maintain them, they're going to last you a long time.
Yep.
Especially for, usually that high dollar sock, it's not something you're wearing daily.
Right.
It's something that you're putting on when you're doing this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I think a good minimum is like three pair. I think we were talking about this the other day, Ed. I think 3 makes a lot of sense because it's like one can be drying while you're wearing one, and then you've got a backup. You've always got a backup, and then you can kind of rotate those.
Yeah, and if you're doing the 2-sock system too, make sure you have 3 of each of those pairs.
Right. Full system. Yep.
I'll never forget, on our old podcast, we had John of 60th Parallel come down and talk. And he mentioned that technique, and I'd heard of guys doing that, but I was like, no, that sounds ridiculous. It sounds like way too much slop going on inside your boot. Like you got 2 pairs of socks on. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And like from the military aspect, it always was told, oh yeah, it's anti-blister. That's what it causes. Like you're basically making the friction happen in between the 2 socks, which is actually true. But if you do wear like a moisture wicking sock and like a merino wool sock as an outer sock, that moisture wicking sock's pushing the moisture from your feet out to the outer sock, and it's keeping the moisture off your feet.
Yep.
And after he explained that to me, and he's like a guy, they just get so much time hunting and out in the woods. He's one of those guys that's like, he's kind of been there, done that, and it was like, man, that makes so much sense. So I started messing around with that. I think we kind of both started messing around with it, and ever since I've done that, it's like my feet are way more comfortable out in the woods. And then like you were just talking about that company, they're basically making a sock that's doing all that in one.
Yeah.
Which is cool. We haven't tried them yet, but we'd like to. But yeah, I mean, guys like, yourself and guys who are out there that are still, they may not have military backgrounds, but they're still going out there and they're getting experience from going out in the woods and doing this stuff. You can learn so much from. So, but yeah.
Yeah, big thanks for coming on and breaking it down. I mean, honestly, like having this conversation, because we've been talking about it a lot and, prepping for the podcast, and you've brought up so many things that I understand. I've always understood layering. Obviously, proof of that to myself, like being in these austere environments in extreme cold and being like, yeah, no, this actually 100% works.
Yeah.
But not actually understanding the why. And that's something that I think happens in the military a lot. It's like, just put this on, and it'll keep you warm. And you're like, okay, so I understand what it's for, but I don't understand why it does what it does.
How it works.
And so it was really nice to have you break that down, because you're able to say, you explained like the materials. I think the materials too, like from the consumer level, it's so important to understand what these materials actually do, which is not something I understood until very recently. Like the sock thing that Steven brought up, I made it through my whole entire military career not understanding that sock thing at all.
Yeah.
And actually that was the one thing that would happen often. I would get like, it's like, man, I'm just like, my feet are always like just either soaked or they're like,
change
you know,
socks.
yeah.
Change socks.
And then we sat down with the 60th parallel guys who are avid hunters. Like that's what they do professionally is hunt. And as far as I know, no military backgrounds.
No.
But like literally professional hunters. That's what they do, you know. And they're like, yeah, no, you do it so it'll, you know, and they explained how the socks work. And I was like, what? And so after that, I started doing that. And I was like, this is amazing. You know, it was like my eyes are reopened. And then, you know, there's things we've talked about that I'm like, oh, that's why, you know, that's why the merino wool is so sick, you know, or whatever it is. And then, yeah, like, you know, bringing up the whole misconception I've seen a lot. And this is something I've understood for a long time, but the whole air layer, the whole air layer insulation, like you're actually heating the air against your body. You're not like, you know, you're not putting warm magic material against you. So it's just, you know, it's a pretty basic topic. But it's very important. And I think it is critical to your overall well-being, regardless of the environment you're in. If you're dealing with if you live in any area where the weather can be an effect, then you need to understand layering.
Yep.
If you're in any northern climates where you're dealing with cold weather and snow, then it's critical.
It's everyday life at that point.
It can kill you. You should not be a casualty to the weather. There's no excuse for it nowadays. I'd like to in the future get into like cold weather survival stuff, like talking about injuries and how to manage them and talking about ways to keep yourself alive. I think that's something I have a lot of experience with. But this is kind of step one of that, your gear and understanding it.
Yeah, and this definitely helps from a buyer standpoint, you know, like actually understanding, like you said, going over the materials and stuff. It helps. It doesn't, not only does it help you out in the field, like knowing how to properly do it, but it also helps you buy the stuff because you're able to kind of actually like see what you're looking at.
Right.
You know, looking at those different gram measurements, like you were talking about with the boots. It's like they don't really break that down what the temperature rating is. They just say, hey, it's 600.
Yep.
Literally, while you were talking about that, there's a boot I'm looking at. I went and quickly looked at it. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm thinking about getting a heavier boot. That's something that my feet and, like I said, my legs and feet are always pretty warm, so I don't need a ton of insulation there. But having a heavier boot that's not like a VB boot or like a muck boot would be nice. But yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, man. Appreciate the knowledge bombs and
thanks
the
for
breakdown. It was a really good breakdown through all the different weights. I'll put a lot of the technical information in the description for people so people can reference it as we're going along. I think this is kind of one of those topics that like words and numbers get said and then before you know it, there's like weird spacesuits in the conversation and you don't remember like the important stuff, like 250 grams, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll put this stuff in the description. So scroll down there if you haven't already. I'm also going to put brands that we recommend basing off of Ed's experience as well as our own. Ed's got a ton of experience running a lot of these different brands and knowing what works pretty good. So I'll put those in the description, links and stuff. So, but yeah, other than that, I think we covered everything we wanted to. If you got any questions about anything, definitely hit us up and we'll get back to you. I'm going to work on a blog hopefully here shortly for our website that breaks down layering very specifically and detailed. I think it'd be a great educational piece to have there. So hopefully that'll come soon. And I'll add that to the description whenever it gets done. So if it's not down there, it's not done yet. If it is, then it's sick. So
cool.
You guys got anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Ed.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.